All right, guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome to episode 56 of the Breaking Point podcast. And we have a banger for you this week as the major has just concluded. One of the most exciting majors I think we've seen in a very long time. The grand finals out of control, viewership through the roof, OpTic take the victory. Austin's joining me today from the FaZe side. Lionman's here with the FaZe jersey. We've just got so much to dive into, so many talking points about all these teams. And then we've got straight back into action in just a few days' time. And we've got to talk about which schedule's the best. Lions had a good time. I'll just throw it to you. I said something funny and then I didn't realise. So off you go. How are we doing, Lion?
Sorry. I'm just in my my FaZe jersey, of course.
Oh, sorry, I said FaZe. Okay, there you go. He's in the OpTic jersey. Austin should be wearing the FaZe jersey. I've got a London stuff on. London sent me some stuff. Really nice. So I thought, we'd rep the 1, 2, 3. We've got the podium set up today.
Yeah, we don't need Austin doesn't need a jersey. He's actually in the team, so it's
that's
okay.
That's a good. We don't have to pretend. Yeah, Austin doesn't have to pretend. We have to pretend.
No, I'm going good. I thought that this weekend was the most fun I've had watching COD since Black Ops 4. Honestly, like I really enjoyed it, and it's probably because, OpTic won, and I've been hiding those feelings deep down for a long time, and they came out this weekend. And now I'm an OpTic fan again, boys.
Let's go.
What do you know? All it takes is one event win, and we're back.
Yeah, Lance been wearing this jersey for the last week. Well, not last week, but last 2 days at least.
No.
Austin, what's good? Commiserations on the result, but still proved you're still up there.
Yeah, not the best, not the worst. First loser, but it is what it is. You got to come back strong next stage.
Absolutely. Let's just crack right on. First of all, before the weekend even began, Maven and Merk got confirmed. I don't think we got to talk about it last week. They did kind of this announcement via community update number 2. I'm sure there's some things that they can probably do in community update number 3 as well. But Maven and Merk are back in business, baby. Thought they killed it this weekend, only for the majors, which honestly I think is fine. Personally, I think they're better in that environment anyway. I know that the CDL are probably thinking this is how we save on the paper. We don't pay them for the regular games, kind of what they want to do for the other ones. But thought they added to it, right? Like forecasting pairs, especially for some of these games when there's like 5 games in a day on Friday, Saturday, like forecasting choice is probably wise. And I would maybe Merk back. Just fantastic scenes. What do you think, Lion? Thought it rounded out what we've got kind of nicely.
Yeah, I think it was perfect. And like not to rush them into being like that main casting duo again, I thought was a good idea. Like having Maven be a bit of the hype man more often than not, I think was really good. And he's still obviously really good at his job. And then just having those two back, it just made it feel complete in that environment on LAN, OpTic Major. It was great.
Yeah, what it allows them to do is like they used Miles and Merk and or Miles and Maven as like the stage host sometimes. I think there was another caster too. So it allows them to use like more of their assets around. They also like shared the analyst desk. I saw Merk, I saw Lando. Study's always there. So
Bryce and Tom on there as well. It's a good time.
Yeah. I liked it a lot. I like having 4 pairs because it will allow like Study and Lando and Bryson Ton to do more of the online matches and keep progressing, and then you'll have like the full force at the majors, and then have like a good setup there. I think it worked out perfectly because I think you didn't get the same voice a lot. They split it up a lot. So unlike when there was 5 matches, I don't think you saw really anyone do 2 straight matches. So I like that. It gives a little bit of spice, like different spice for each match. Yeah, overall, I think this might be the most loaded CDL like broadcast team we've had. We've had a lot of good hosts. I love Veli. I think he's doing really good. This is probably the best the desk has been since ever, I think, actually, probably. We have 4 really strong pairs of casters. I know people like to, clown some of them, but I think we have 4 pretty strong casting pairs. And I feel like this is like the strongest we might have seen the CDL like production team in a while, and I think that adds to the quality of the production like immensely. I feel like this was probably one of the best like tournament streams we've seen since Black Ops 4. My vote. So I'm really excited for the rest of the year.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, the esports engine killing it as well. Some unfortunate delays. I don't really think a lot of that's on the esports engine side, and they seem to figure out how to fix it as the weekend goes on. We can certainly dive into that. Let's talk about the teams. 4 teams came top 12 at this event. Some unsurprising, some surprising. First of which being Mutineers. I thought they would at least win one series here. They probably should have won this series, to be honest. Awakening legit had like a 1.6 for the L. Map 4, he was 37-13 for the loss. Just say that again, 37-13 for the loss. And there's some thoughts. What's going on? Like, what are they playing at? Why do they do this? Why are they always like this? Why do Florida have to do it like this? It's just so consistent.
Get a hill.
It's get in the hill, lads, please. So look, plus 50. I don't know if you know the full stats on this, Austin, whether this is the most any team has been outslayed for the win. Just because I think Boston got outslayed by 53 over the series, which is a lot of kills to be outslayed by for the win. Some are saying they need to bring back Havoc, have some like an SMG presence with some knowledge of how to play the game correctly. I don't know what you think about that, because Havoc's been killing it in challenges, and it's maybe that's the way to go. I don't know.
He needs someone to hit a hill. Like you can have all the map control you want if you aren't, capturing the objective. It's not going to get you a W. Like I know. You got to have your slayers, but you also have to have people that are getting in the hill, people that are playing the objectives. You can't just have one person. Yeah, like I saw Skies get a lot of hill time, but you can't just have one person doing that role. You can't have one person sitting a hill. You can't have one person taking routes. Like it's not the type of game we play anymore. Like everyone's got to be doing it equally, and that's just not what you're seeing on that Florida side, which is part of the reason why you see them being so inconsistent. They have all the gun like slaying power as any team. Honestly, I think they have a lot of like great slayers on that team, but you need to put it together on the objective side if you're going to be taking that next leap in. And I think they'll get there. I just think we saw a little bit too much patience and not enough what's it called when you have to do something quickly? Like
proactive?
I can't think of the word, but yeah, you didn't see anyone think they had to get to the objective fast. Like you didn't see anyone with that urgency. Yeah. And everything was very slow. Everything was very like, let's take our time. And it was like, that doesn't work if you're like, the other team was just constantly taking advantage of the objective, even though they're getting outslayed. And that's part of the reason why Florida is so inconsistent, like in the past stage, that's something they're gonna have to evaluate and get better at.
Yeah, because clearly this slaying is like really good, and it has been, like it always is, and that's why they have that opportunity to like beat any team on any given day. It just seems like they can't put it together, especially at these majors. And do you think that they would need, because they got Coach Willett, do you think that a coaching change or a new analyst or something needs to come into this team, or do you think a roster change is more likely going forward?
No, I don't think they're gonna do like a coaching change or anything. I mean, they had Ricky Atura last year. Now they're just with Willett this year. I think it's a play style between the 4 players. Honestly, they're just gonna have to find like it's a give and take on rosters. You can't all 4 play the way you want to play. You have to. It's a give and take, especially in a team of 4. Someone's gonna have to do a role they don't want to do. Someone's gonna have to do stuff they don't necessarily have done in the past, and I think that's what they're kind of internally battling about right now, and they just have to get all on the same page. It's just something that new teams like grow through. Like it's especially nowadays where pretty much your roster is pretty much your roster from the start of the year. It's really hard to change the rosters unless you're going for an amateur. In the past, when your roster wasn't working out, you would just make a move instantly. But right now, I think there's just a philosophical difference between how like some of the players want to play the game, and they just have to get on the same page. On what they want to do, like what's your objective for each hill? Because right now it just seems like it's like a football team that just gets all the possession but then doesn't create any chances. Like that's pretty much what I see in them. They're just getting all the possession on the map, but you're not actually capturing the objective or taking advantage of your kills, and that's something like they're gonna have to be more efficient at.
I mean, man, this team it just frustrates me to no ends. Like the thing is with this team is they're just never going to win an event with that 4. It's just not going to happen because they can't win that many series in a row. They can't even win 1 in a row. I thought they'd at least win 1 before they went out, but it's just not. So what is your goal with this team? They have the talent, and I don't know. It just seems to me that when they were good, when they were mutineers in Modern Warfare, they had Pharaoh and they had Frosty, 2 players that actually know what's going on, can lead the team, play in a correct manner. Now they don't have that, to be honest. And I feel like they need someone like that. So I don't know if it's a one-man change. I don't know if it's a two-man change, but you've got to bring someone in there that actually knows how to win a Call of Duty game, because it's right now it's not working.
When you look at 5v5 though, it seemed a lot more Slay heavy because of that like chaotic nature of the map. So I think that suited their playstyle more so because it came down to kills more.
And
Whereas
like right now, when you look at their like SMG duo, it's obviously Awakening and Vivid. It's very, very polar opposites on the speed scale there. Like when you look at the pace of it, you're not getting the same pace out of both of them, which is something a lot of teams struggle with that. And if you can't get that under control, it's going to fracture your front line. It's going to fracture what like the objective work. It actually makes it a lot harder for you. So I think like that's an issue they're going to have to look at. They definitely, I feel like they might be going like an old school route where like the main AR just gets all the hill time. I don't know if that's the best for them. I don't know. I just feel like they just have to figure out how they want to approach each hill on every map and like just really try to stick to that game plan. Because right now it just seems like everything is kind of Awakening's going a little bit slower, playing for kills. Vivid's playing at a lightning fast pace, pushing out everything. Skies is just sitting in the hill. Patty's just locking down the lane. It's just so like it feels like 4 separate players playing a game instead of like 4 or like 1 unit. So it's something that some people predicted was going to happen when you have 3 ARs on a team. Like usually when you have a slower SMG, it makes your SMG line work harder or your AR line work harder. Like your ARs have to be a little bit more fast paced. And so they just have to rework some things, get on the same page. I wouldn't like overreact because I still think, Skies I think he's a really top tier AR still. Awakening has an immense amount of gun skill, like just raw talent on the gun skill. Reese has always been an underrated SMG, and Patty he's done like as good as you would expect. I think I don't think anyone expected him to go crazy, but he's doing as good as you expect. He's doing a good job on the back line. You just have to put that all together, and that's something where they're kind of like struggling at right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you do, but I just think something's got to give, and I must say, Stat Paddy is absolutely hilarious. I don't know. I saw that for the first time a couple of days ago, and I thought I did crack up at Stat Paddy. I'm not gonna lie. He does have 1.08 there right now, so there's something to be said. Okay, let's go on to the next team. New York, they're also top 12. Pretty much as expected, to be honest. I was hoping they would at least win one map. In fairness, they got kind of close to beating Thieves on game 1 gavutu. After that, it went rapidly downhill. Okay, it's the same story every time. Hydra just hard carries them. Clayster and Royalty were in the bin again. Crim6 looked all right. Same story they've had in the last stage, frankly. So what do you do, right? Rumor has it Clay might be getting dropped. If he gets dropped, where does he go? That's a question for another day. Then you've got to think, what do you do on the SMG line? Rumor also has it Neptune might be making it back into the starting team. If that's the case, Crim on the main AR, which I personally think is probably a good idea because most of the ARs in this game that have been really good so far are kind of honestly pretty hyper-aggressive assault rifles, the likes of Dashi, Arcitys obviously has looked good as well, Zero, for example. These type of guys looked really good in that role. Guys that have flexed in the past, which I think is quite interesting. Like the best main ARs in the game right now seem to be players who in the past have been flexes who can run that role, because I guess the auto is almost like a flex gun, really. So that's why it makes me think that probably Crim could do a good job there. Then if you bring Neptune back, because obviously he wasn't the issue with the roster in the first place, given what's happened the last few weeks, Royalty's got to go as well. Unfortunate, but I just saw this one coming a mile off, to be honest. I feel like everyone did. Maybe he doesn't, but who knows. Then they need a flex if that's the case. So that's just my breakdown of it. Obviously, something significant has to give. We only have a few days until the start of the new stage. I don't know if they're actually going to get anything in order here, but like, they got 3-0 again, man. It's you can't look past it at this point. They're trying to win championships. They made the move after one weekend because they're trying to win championships. It's not worked out. It's backfired. So they've got to make moves again. Surely that's the idea. What do you think, Lion? I just want this team to be competitive because right now we've got a fantastic top of the top tier, and New York should be up there, but not now.
Yeah, I felt like that change they made for Royalty was like an attempt to stop the bleeding and to see if there was a quick fix, and that clearly didn't work. But I felt like Neptune still wasn't the right piece at the time as well, and they were clearly losing. So I don't know what you can do with this team unless you completely dismantle it and keep those 2 pieces of Crim and Hydra and then build around them. Like, Austin, do you see there being much difference bringing in a new AR, maybe a slower paced AR for Clay, and then bringing back Neptune, because I don't see how that would completely like revolutionize this roster.
I don't really see it. I think look at the top teams right now. Like out of OpTic, Toronto, and us, I don't think they're going to be better than those three teams. And then you have Seattle, London, or LA Thieves is probably number 4. It would be very hard to have them over them, like New York over those three. Seattle, LA Thieves, London. Like I don't know. I feel like this team's ceiling this year, or like average, is going to be like around what the LA Gorillas and Boston is. I just feel like there was a lot of hype coming in for them this year, but I feel like everyone wants to be a top team, but it's very hard to make it there. It's very, very, very difficult. So I don't know. I don't want to be too harsh on them because you have two proven winners there in Crim and Clay. But I also feel like right now, if you look around the league, almost every single like main AR is actually, it's very difficult to be a main AR this year. I feel like this is kind of like one of those years. Like if you look at it, even like Octane hasn't been putting up crazy numbers. Scott, I can't even think of or like Zenny just turned up at the major, but like I feel like
outside of that, yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of like main ARs that are kind of like struggling. Like Accuracy's had a couple bad weeks.
Flasher, for example.
Flasher, I feel like even Insight hasn't really been doing that hot.
Yeah.
I feel like he's been like, but at his standards, he expects to be one of the top players. I feel like he hasn't been too crazy this year. So I feel like right now, like, a main AR is not gonna win or lose you games. I feel like they're the ones that have to make the smart plays, the rotation plays, the locking down lanes as much. I feel like right now it's all about having your flex in your SMGs to have really good communication, be really like those are the guys that are actually pushing out lanes and working together. So look, maybe one place they can upgrade is royalty and then go from there. But I don't think switching out Clay for another main AR, like what other main AR is there? There's really none in the challenger scene. I mean,
Put Crim on the main, that's the play.
put Crim on that, but then who's going to be your flex?
I don't know, you bring some lad in, you can find flexes.
It gets tough. It gets tough when you start like trying to like revamp a roster mid-season.
It's tough making a change now. Like I think if they were to make a change after this stage, because I personally think when that kind of like mid-season break hits after stage 2, because that's the point where teams like they know what they've done and they know what there is to come, and they know at that point that there's 2 more stages plus champs to go. Like that's when I feel like a lot of teams are going to make moves because they have time to do it and figure things out and work out contracts.
Smart would be a good plug and play for this team, but I feel like
he's locked up, right?
So the same as like the royalty switch. Like it's not revolutionary at all. He's proven himself in the league before, and he played okay on LAG back in Modern Warfare. But it's not like that's going to make the big difference that they're looking for at all.
Yeah, that's why I just say like realistic. Like Diamond Con's a main AR. Like realistically, I don't really know what pieces you would put around whatever is in New York to make that a top 4 team. Like during mid-season when all the top tier talents locked up, and even all the top subs are locked up, you're just kind of one of the big negatives to like how the current format is with obviously is just rosters are pretty locked for the season. Like you have to kind of, that's why building your roster in the offseason is so important, and locking down what your weaknesses are before they actually appear and getting a solid sub. Like I think Brezzy, I'm seeing Brezzy. I think Brezzy's better than Mohawk. Definitely in this game actually. So I would say if I'm New York, I said it I think 2 episodes ago that Mohawk or Brezzy would be a pretty obvious fit there just because he's French. He's in NA. I just don't know about his visa status and whether he would be able to work with a franchise yet. But that's just something I don't know. It's really tough to switch your rosters mid-season and then become an instant top 4 team.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I actually don't know what they even really do because even looking at these, like I'm looking at these lineups like Crim6, Awakening, Hydra, Neptune, Crim6, Brezzy, Hydra, Neptune, and I'm thinking like it just doesn't seem like it's going to cut it compared to the pace of these top teams are playing at. It just feels like from the start it's just been a shambles. Just the way this game has ended up playing out, like they just managed to build a team that was the worst possible for this type of game. So it feels like they need a complete restructure.
Crim, Awakening, Neptune, and Hydra, that would be the worst calming team in the history of Call of Duty.
Can you imagine? Oh my god.
Jesus
Oh no,
Christ.
Awakening and Neptune back together after the trash that Neptune talked on to Awakening in the off season. We've got the Crim Wake beef from back in the day. Even that wasn't really beef. But I mean, yeah, like the thing is you're trying to fix the team and you're given reasonable ideas and then it just feels like it's not going to work. So what do? I don't know what they do.
Florida and New York. Such a smart idea.
Yeah, exactly. Combine Florida and New York and go from top 12 and top 8 to top 10. Congratulations.
Yes.
I'm going to be real too. I keep seeing it. You're not going to find a trade for any of these players. There's never been a trade in the CDL.
Too much cash, baby.
Yeah, it's just buyouts. You just have to buy out people. There's no trading because there's no trade. Like in the NFL, you have draft picks. There's nothing to even the scale besides money, and every team just doesn't want to get screwed. So you're just never gonna. That's why it's tough. So you're never gonna be able to trade Clay. You would have to eat his salary. Which
some said, could you trade Clay for Slasher? Would that work? I don't think it would work. You've got to be faded.
LAG would probably say no to that.
Oh, okay. Well, if LAG is saying no, then New York have got to say.
I don't know.
Because because Crib and Slasher were talked about being on the same team in the off season, but like if New York actually do that, they've got to be faded because there's no way that's going to work. Yeah. But I mean,
I do have one trade,
and also Seaman Clay drama.
Clay has been traded before. Do you remember what that trade was? It was for another player, Austin.
Gunless.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It was a 1-to-1 trade, NIW.
Yeah.
It's a good point. That has happened like one time. Could you do it again? We do it. We run it back, baby.
Franchise league.
Yeah. Imagine that, Clay and Slasher. Okay, it's chalked. Basically, New York are chalked. We'll see what they do. Let's talk Los Angeles Guerrillas, because speaking of Slasher, very underwhelming weekend from him. So, like, I've never seen Slasher drop like a 0.6 on LAN. Even last year, when he had no practice and came back into LA Thieves towards the end of the year, he still was dropping like 1.2s. So to see Slasher at this level is very surprising to me because I'm a big Slasher fan. I'm like, is he washed? Maybe he's washed. I don't know. Like he was very underwhelming. If Asim is their best player, pretty much across the board, then well, okay, Gunless you can throw up there, but I think Asim has been their most impactful player. That's a problem, you know. Where's Hook? Where's Slasher? Gunless has been kind of there and thereabouts. But they lose a close series to London, and then they get 3-0'd by Minnesota in, frankly, embarrassing fashion. You can't get 3-0'd by Rocker. If you're letting Rocker win map 1, there's a problem there already. And then you go on to lose losing the search is acceptable. Then you lose the control. Like, embarrassing way to go out of the tournament. They finished top 12. You know, I kind of said coming in, I thought one of the LA teams was going to be underwhelming. Wasn't sure which one. Thought it might be Thieves. Turns out it's probably LA Guerrillas. Again, they've done it again, boys. They've made the changes. Everyone was super happy. They're still top 12. Even last year, they were top 6 of the first major. So, look, I don't know what you do. I don't know if you make a change already. As I say, there's barely any time. But Sparty's sitting there on the bench. Last year, they were adamant that they were just going to stick with their roster the whole time, and it completely backfired. So I wonder if they'll change their philosophy here. Either bring in Spart or just wait for after stage 2 when you might be able to make some crazy moves happen and drop half the team. What do you think, Lion? On current, like this team, it doesn't feel right watching them.
Yeah, I didn't expect Rocker to come out and smoke him. Like, I think all our predictions were that it would be like a 3-2 and that Rocker would edge a 2-3-5 maybe. But they just came out and wiped the floor with them. And I mean, I don't know really changes to make because I think coming into this year, this was one of the teams that we were hyping up to be, you know, like a new top 4 team. And I think to make a change now would be kind of crazy because it's the first stage and they have proven through the qualifiers that they can compete at that level and beat some really good teams. So I think for now, they've just got to go through the motions, maybe recalculate how they're playing together, and I think they should be fine. But yeah, they just had a really, really bad first event. I was trying to pull up the stats for Major 1, but Breaking Point website is not helping me very well. Oh yeah, so Slasher had a 0.88. I mean, great website. Breaking Point, brilliant website. Yeah, but yeah, Hook was the only one with a positive KD for the series with a 1.02, and I guess Yeah.
I mean, who
he
was going on?
shooting
Was it like the
straight.
game one or something? There was some. It was London. He had that crazy control round on gavutu when he was like finessing around the B point. And I just see that hook and I'm thinking, wow, why can't that hook play all the time? Because that hook was there stage 1 last year, and then he vanished off the face of the earth.
Yeah. I don't know what that is. I mean, we'd have to ask him. What do you reckon, Austin?
Like I like some of the pieces in this LAG team. It just seems like they just have like these like super brain farts in the middle of just an important part of the map. Like it'll be like there was like one I remember watching the last map of the qualifying matches. It was a Berlin hardpoint P5, and they all stacked in the P2 and then just didn't move. I'm like someone's got to make a play. I don't know. I just feel like sometimes like they have a lot of talent behind them, and like they should be way better than they are, but like they have like these random brain farts that just keep screwing them at the end of these maps, and it's like really hurting their chances of progressing. So like I don't know who's at fault because of that. Like maybe they just need like to get everyone on the same page, but I don't know. Like sometimes I'll see like, and it's all of them. I don't know. It's just they all have to get on the same page. I feel like Gunless has been one of the better ARs in the league this year. He's freaking frying, and then Asim is probably he's doing a great job of being that SMG pairing right now. Hookson having actually some really good like maps. He'll come out and just have like a really good map, but then it's just about consistency. Finding that consistency from map to map is just something that's not 100% there yet. And then this is probably the worst tournament I've ever seen Slasher have. Like think like
Gotta be, yeah.
I saw him. He dropped a .59 in one series. I don't
Yeah,
think
that last series.
The quality as well.
I don't think I've ever seen that. I don't know what the
He had
hell's
32
going on
kills in
there.
3 maps.
But like, I mean, I did just say like there are a lot of main ARs that are like struggling to find the slaying pace. Like a lot of it's more of like the playing the rotations and everything. But a .59 is just not gonna cut it. In anything. So like that needs to be addressed, and there's got to be fixes found for that. But I don't know. It just seems like another team, or this team should be way better than they're at, and they're kind of struggling to put it together. I don't know. I definitely feel like this team should be way better. They should be like one of the best respawn teams, just based off their talent and like their pedigree. Like just think of the last couple of years. Like that's team's been known for like respawn stars. Like I think I've thought they're gonna struggle in S&D. I don't see these guys being a good S&D team, but I see them being a terrific hardpoint and control team. They just have to put that together. Like once they put that together, then that at least gives them a chance to win every series. But right now, they have some work to do in those modes. They have to be way more consistent than hardpoint, because that's what's going to win them series. They just have to find that consistency, because right now it's just not really there.
Yeah, I don't really know what you do if you're this roster. Maybe they'll stick it out. I don't even know. Like the thing is, Sparts. Like you bring him in, who do you bring him in for? Unless you make Gunless the main.
Makes sense.
Maybe it's worth a go, right? Because Slasher hasn't played great. I mean, he was obviously doing his best to prove after last year getting benched that it wasn't a good idea, which he kind of did towards the end of the year, but hasn't worked out so far. So we'll see. I think that if teams don't make changes now in the coming like 3 days, we might well see some changes, just as New York did after the first week of matches, when they've kind of had a bit more time to consider and played a couple more games just to realize, okay, this isn't going to work, and seeing where they might be again. Because if you're a team like Minnesota, you obviously don't want to start in losers again. But it didn't help a team like LAG regardless. The other top 12 team was Seattle, which is quite something, right? Like I wouldn't have said that after the opening weekend where they come top 2, they look super good, see loads of upside potential. But this is kind of where, honestly, this is kind of what I thought would happen when the year started. They would struggle at the start of the year, and then they'd be the type of team that would pick it up. But it's weird how they've started incredibly hot and fallen off drastically, and whether they can pick it up again is a massive question mark. Pred said to me in an interview we did just before the major that he feels like they got complacent after their hot start. Whether that's it, who knows? Because obviously they could have easily gone 1-4 if not for 2 Game 5 round 11 clutches from accuracy in the regular side. And then they come in here, get beaten comfortably by OpTic. Not a particularly close series at all. even though OpTic traditionally start rather slow on. I mean, this is a Thursday match, wasn't it? Yeah. So, even then, that's pretty early for OpTic to come out hot. They get 3-0'd. They then go down to lose to Paris. I mean, this was honestly a shambolic series to watch. It was so frustrating. Like, don't get me wrong, Paris improved. We'll talk about them in a second here. But, mistakes all over the park. The control was such a mess. The search and destroys were not good at all. I'm sure if the coaches are watching that, they're just absolutely mind blown how Seattle managed to lose that series to some of the plays being made. So I don't know what's gone on here. Other teams obviously have caught up, but also their star players, really everyone outside of Accuracy who's been relatively consistent through all of this has just fell off massively. I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. The difficulty is for them that if they'd have started off the season like this, they'd have at least had some confidence that they could improve and get better. I guess they should still have that because they know what they can do. For that reason, I don't think they'll make a move, but it's about getting them back in business. I don't Austin, from your perspective, just kind of being inside a team, what do you do to get these guys back in their groove? Because I imagine the confidence in that camp is not feeling particularly good right now.
You have to start finding it in scrims. So whether or not you kind of tone down your scrim schedule to start beating up on some of the either amateur or lower teams, and then kind of building it up from there, or because right now, look, I always thought from the beginning that London and Seattle might struggle at the beginning of the year, but that's why they have Lamar and Trey in their rosters, so they could be there to pick up these guys, pick up these rookies once something goes wrong. This moment right here is why Lamar is on the team. I'm sure he's sitting there giving them freaking prep talks every other map in scrims, and Sam Phoenix is he reminds me of Dan Campbell from the Detroit Lions head coach. Really positive energy. You have a 5-minute conversation with him, and you want to start running through walls for him. So those two guys, and then Brandon, those guys are gonna get back on track. It's just maybe this team might be one of those teams that has a high ceiling but also a low floor, and it might be kind of not as bad as Florida, but you might have where this team can beat anybody but then also lose to anybody if they're in their head a little bit, because you saw them lose to Paris, which I didn't think was possible.
Yeah, exactly right.
But you also saw them start 3-0 in the qualifying matches. So, look, they need this is going to be good for them by the end of the year. They're going to look back and kind of think we're kind of happy that we kind of sucked at the beginning of the year, because then you learn from your losses, you get better from it, you get stronger, and so at the end of the year, if something does a bump in a road again, you've already crossed that bridge once, you know how to get by it. So I'm sure they won't say this, but looking at it now, it's probably better at starting at the beginning of the season, because you can learn from that, get better from it. So if it happens again at the end of the season, then you know how to get past it. Whereas if they start good and then all of a sudden stage 3 or 4, they just hit a bump in the road and they don't. I don't know. It's easier to patch things up at the beginning of the year. So I still think they're going to be a top 8 team. You just have to find consistency, I guess. You can't start really 3-0, and then I think they lost their last 4 matches. So they just have to find 1, get their confidence back, and then 2, I don't know, just you got to start finding what's a good mode they're in right now. What's their mode where they go into a series and they just know they're going to win. I don't think they really have one right now.
No?
Control, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was Control.
Yeah, but they don't have one right now, that's for sure.
And
Yeah.
I think everyone kind of caught up. I think that's pretty much what I got from it, is everyone caught up and they kind of stayed at the level they were at, and now you see I don't know. I feel like a lot of teams learned a lot from the kickoff and the 2 weeks of scrims after. And I feel like Seattle was ahead of teams. They were definitely ahead of teams at the kickoff, but I don't think they're ahead of teams anymore, because at the kickoff they were 3-1 in Control and 3-1 in S&D, and then from the major one, I call it stage 1, they were 5-5 in S&D, and that includes 2 round 11 clutches, and then they were 3-4 in Control, and they were 4-7 in Hardpoint. So there's not one mode right now where I look at them and I'm like, they're gonna have this mode on lock, right? Right now, if you play OpTic, you just know they're gonna win the Control. Right now, if you play LA Thieves, you know they're probably gonna take at least 1 hard point, right? What do you need to get that back, get your confidence back, find a mode that you're very confident in, and then they'll start climbing back up the ladder because there was a reason why they were ahead of everybody at the kickoff. They just have to get back to that level.
Yeah. And even going into the major, I think they were having like trouble, especially Sib, like psychologically almost. He was talking about the aim assist issues and all that, and they were getting in their own heads. And if we actually look at like the breakdown of this team, there's only 3 teams in the CDL right now that have 2 rookies. And I feel like that comes with like an extra pressure when you're playing at that level for the first time. And I think you're more susceptible to having slumps because you haven't had to bounce back at that level before. So I'm wondering, are they going through just a slump at the moment? And also, they had the exact opposite start to OpTic this year, where they just scraped wins in the stage, and then lost those. Oh, they won 3, didn't they? And then they lost 2 badly at the end. Whereas OpTic lost those 2 really closely at the start, and then won those 3, and then won the tournament. So I feel like they're in complete opposite trajectories at the moment.
It's
But
actually a great point.
It just seems like right now.
Yeah, go
they're living and dying by like Sib and Pred. Like if Sib and Pred aren't on one, they're not winning, and like that's obviously a red flag because those 2 players have drastically lowered. Like the first 3 matches they were both frying, and in the last 4 matches both of them are really struggling. But one positive, I guess, is Mac's playing really good. I would say Mac had a good final series, but you have to find a way to get your rookies going. I just feel like people kind of caught on to what Pred was doing on the map. People kind of caught on to where Sib was doing all these chows on the map, and their confidence is a little bit lower, so they're not like doing these aggressive peaks and challenges. And that's what makes them who they are, is like that egotistical like chow, like this I'm gonna chow you no matter what, and like that's where they were finding advantages on the map. So they have to find that back. They'll get it back. I do have faith that like Lamar, like he's that leader that's gonna get them back to where they are. Mac's still playing good, which I think is important for them in the long run, and I believe in their coaching staff to get them back on track. So, they'll get there. They'll get there.
Well, I'd like to think so, but it remains to be seen. The team that beat them was Paris Legion, baby. Come on, they've won a series. I honestly thought it was going to be a long time coming until they won a series, but it's happened. They've done it. It's official. Gravity comes in, wins the first series as a team. As I say, it was sloppy. It wasn't pretty, but they got the job done, and you've got to respect that. I thought it was funny, really, because the crowd got like super behind Paris, because there's such a meme of an organization that like the crowd was actually super on board when they won. It's kind of funny, really. But credit to the guys. I was happy for them. They brought them out on stage after they won the series, like they just won the event. I thought it was hilarious. But yeah, still, people talking about, do they need to make further moves? Because, I mean, look, team's still not going to win an event, is it? So maybe we've got to make some other changes. They end up losing to Boston in a relatively close series. Like, they could have done something there. Like, it wasn't disastrous for Paris in that one, to be honest. Talk is that Jimbo might come in for Fellow here. We kind of heard that before this event even happened. In fairness, Fellow on the sub here, I thought was actually pretty good. He had his moments. But maybe it's time just to try another rookie, give it a go. I thought the temp was good. John also definitely showed up at times. Like John, sometimes he just snaps into that kind of like OG Black Ops 3 John, where he'll just smoke them for like 3 rounds and then he'll disappear again. But it's kind of nice to have someone like that on the team if you've got the consistency elsewhere in the lineup, which hopefully maybe Jimbo can provide if they bring it through. Oh yeah, actually I remember the Search and Destroy now. The amount of chokes they threw away in that one. Yeah, still sloppy gameplay, but they come top 8, which is better than people expected, Austin.
Yeah, I mean, we just want Paris to be competitive, and that's what they were this weekend. I felt Tom came in and did a terrific job. Temp. Donnie looked amazing again. I feel like he's been doing really well. It's just like their SMGs kind of aren't there. I feel like that's what will hold them back from like really becoming like a top 8 team. Is right now their SMG line is just not really there for everyone that's ahead of them. But the positive note is I feel like they have a really good AR line with Temp and Tom. So I feel like that's a good building block. And look, I'm gonna be real. Not every team's gonna win tournaments. Not every team's gonna be, making runs up the upper bracket. Like I feel like for this team, goals should be reach upper bracket out of the qualifying matches. If you can do that, that's a positive. Or probably be competitive in most series and maybe try to finish like top 8 at the end of the majors. I feel like those are the goals they should be setting for themselves. Or the players will obviously want to do really good, but like the organization itself should be setting those goals like that. So like if they do bring in Jimbo, I feel like that's a good switch. Jimbo is a really hyper aggressive SMG, has been on teams with Tom, has been on teams with I think John, if they're keeping John or I can't remember. I don't know what
I think they're
saw the
keeping
Crone
John,
tweet,
but let me have a look at the Crone tweet real quick.
but like I don't know, like this team, I feel like if you start making building blocks for the future, I feel like that should be their objective, is like finding out younger players that they can hang on to for next year, start building that up this year, giving them experience, and we're being competitive. I just don't want to see Paris get 3-0 every series, and this Paris this past weekend looks like they can at least compete to win the series, which is something that's all we want. Like right now, one of my favorite matches to watch, I think was the Seattle Paris game. Like that was
good,
that was one of the best series to watch, and the crowd was
so
loving
hectic.
it. So like that's what makes this league great, is if the lower tier teams can still be competitive with the mid tier, that makes every matchup be way more exciting. Because that's what kind of sucked last year, was like the lower tier teams, when they faced the mid tier teams, it would just be like, okay, like it's gonna be 3-0. That's what everyone hates, and that's what kind of kills viewership in those smaller games. But if a team like Paris and New York and LAG and like Seattle, like the teams in the mid pack, like I say, like 7 through 12, if they can just have fun matchups, like we're gonna do really well for viewership. And yeah, so I actually have a lot of positive thoughts about the way that Paris is doing this. I feel like if they do get Jimbo, if they have Tom, they have Donnie, they have building blocks for the future, and they can keep getting better as the season goes along.
Yeah, I was just looking at the stats for Paris. Did you see their S&D KDs? Because I'll read them out in a second.
It does. They weren't that good,
I can't
right?
tell whether they're going to be
No.
atrocious or good, because they won a game 5.
Yeah,
wild.
that's what I
No,
can't
because-
tell.
Alright, I'll read it out. So Temp had a 1.26, Gravity had a 1.25, John had a 1.39,
Oh my
and then
god.
Fellow had a 0.70.
Damn, I guess he was carrying Bob, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was just,
They were
it
sending
does
that
seem
boy
like
in first.
statistically, just like they're good
That's crazy,
statistically,
though.
apart from the outlier, which has been Fellow. Which
Bring in
is
Jimbo,
like,
and then
pretty
everyone
tough
drops
to point out,
1.3s.
but
Easy.
that's the case right now. And so I'm thinking, like, if they do get Jimbo in there and he like works well, especially with Gravity because of their precedence as a duo, I think that team could actually do something, because John's starting to look like the player that he's been before. And so I don't know, man. They
That's
could
his
come out and
moment.
shock people if that change comes through and they're playing at the level that they've been playing outside of Fellow. So it's like, could be crazy.
I mean, they could be like a Minnesota or LAG from last year, where they were actually good at S&D. They could take some maps that way, and then as long as you steal like a control or hard point, that gives you a chance to win the series. Because I mean, my philosophy on the lower tier teams is you really have to find one mode where you have an advantage that you can build off of to get ahead of everybody else. Because realistically, a lower tier team is not going to be godlike at all 3 modes. There's a reason why you're on the lower side. You have to find advantages in at least one mode, preferably either hardpoint or S&D, that can make you a winning team, that can scrape by series. And Paris, they're kind of in a weird spot for me, because I actually feel like they could be a decent respawn team, especially with Jimbo if they do grab him. But I also feel like S&D, like the way Donnie and John and Temp play, or Gravity played, I feel like they did really, really good in S&D, and they could definitely keep that up. But that just gives me even more promise for them to at least be competing for top 8 in the future.
Yeah, especially if they had that game mode like to rely on as well. If they do, then that could be good for them as well. But
Yeah, I think that's the play. I mean, I just want them to be a team kind of. I mean, Minnesota is a good example, but even just like a Florida where they can win a series, that at least keeps things interesting when they play. Because towards the end of last year, it was like, oh, it's Surge, it's Paris, it's LAG, it's chalked. So hopefully this year won't be like that. Minnesota, the other top 8 team, they end up getting 3-1 by Thieves. Not the worst tournament in the world for them, but kind of after they beat Gorillas in a poor series from LAG, Thieves basically just did what Thieves do and just beat them. I think they beat them in the respawns, did they not? I'm pretty sure that was a classic 3-1 win all 3 respawns, if I'm not mistaken. But whatever the case, it was pretty much what we expected from Rocker losing to Thieves in that way. Attach has insane stats right now. He has like a 1.08 over the or maybe over the major over the season so far. Like really good stats. And a lot of that I think is coming when he has the auto in his hand. So a lot of people are saying, look, it might be time for kind of a role change here, and putting kind of Attach on that permanently. I don't know, because Priester still has been, inconsistent to say the very best. Honestly, since the FaZe days, and even on FaZe, he didn't do anything spectacular because the team was stacked. He really hasn't been the player that we know he can be. So I think that's part of the issue.
Okay, I feel like Preston should be their entry sub. I feel like Preston should be an entry sub. Standy, like the last 2 years, he's actually been one of the slower, like route heavy subs. He's usually like the slaying sub. So like that's the role I think he should play. Priesta should be the entry sub, a la Black Ops 4, with 100 Thieves. Just let him get mixy with it and start feeling himself, because even last year when he was picking up the sub, I just remember Garrison Control. Jesus Christ, he'd pop up from below in the vent. Next, he would go down there. He'd pop up top green out of nowhere like 5 seconds later. I don't even know how it was humanly possible. And then he would just be in your spawn. Like he's that player that just is annoying to play against. So like that's why I feel like Preston should be the sub. And look, I think Dylan has been doing good on the SMG, but that is just not his playstyle anymore. His playstyle should be a flex AR probably. He should actually probably be a main AR, the way he's kind of on the slower end of things. So like I feel like it should definitely be SMGs, Preston and Standy, and then it should be Major Maniac and Attach on the ARs. I feel like that gives them a good balance of slaying and like smarts. So I feel like that team, that collection of roles could be really, really good. It's just I know some of those players, like I know Attach is more accustomed to the SMG. I know like Preston is usually more on the AR the last 3 years, I think. I feel like he's been using the AR a lot. But I don't know. I just feel like if you look at where those players have played best, like this past weekend, Attach was frying with the AR. He was doing really, really good on the 3 AR maps. And in the past, like Preston is at his best was always like an entry SMG or like that utility man that played like any role. So I just feel like that's where they have to, if they can't find success with their current team composition, like the roles wise, I feel like that's where I would probably suggest doing roles in the future. But I don't know.
Yeah. I 100% agree. That's like a really good shout. I think when Priester is unleashed, he's playing at his best. But that's been like quite rare throughout his career. He's usually been that flex player that can run anything. And that's where teams have put him. Like in C9, he was running the K bar in 2017. 2018, he was running was it STG or was it STG or bar? Like he kind of switched in between and then pulled out the SMG sometimes. Like he was that flex. And then his best year, which was definitely Black Ops 4, he was arguably top 3 entry subs in the game. And I can see him working like really well with Standy in that role, because Standy is a lot more like that simp type player. And so I think those two if they find good pacing, could be incredible. And Attach, when he plays with the SMG, and we've seen this before, he plays a very like pre-aim heavy style. And I think like Scump kind of does, that transitions extremely well to ARs in this game. And like we saw Scump with the AR, he was frying. And it's like that can be used as that more holding down lanes role. And I think those two players can play that role really well. And so if Attach is that player, maybe he plays main AR to play that, and then Major's the somewhat flex, and then you have Priester entry, Standy is the slaying SMG. I think that would be perfect. And I can see them being really good in respawn as well if that's the case.
Yeah.
Because Attach had a 1.28 for this event, for the Major. I mean, it was two series.
Yeah, but they were playing a lot of AR heavy maps, and that's why I really do think him on the AR will be probably the best thing for this roster. And I feel like that frees up P-Dog to do whatever he wants, like with an SMG, whether he wants to entry, whether he wants to let Eli kind of speed up. Because right now, I feel like their pacing was just kind of off. I feel like Mike's a little bit more of like an iron boots, but he like in the past, like he always was pretty good with that SMG. He would be able to make moves with it whenever he picked it up. So I feel like he can speed it up. I feel like he's just slowing down because that's what the team requires. But I feel like if you put attach on that, then you have two like slower ARs, right? But that's okay. Then they're both on the same pace. Um, that allows Preston to get wicked aggressive, play his role. I feel like right now you have two SMGs that aren't the most aggressive, and then you have Preston who's struggling on the AR sometimes. Sometimes he's doing okay, but then sometimes he has like those bad maps. And Mike was killing it in the qualifying matches. I don't really remember how he did at the major, but I just feel like sometimes their pacing and rolls are just a little bit off, and like that's why you'll see them when they catch fire, they win tournaments. They won a tournament last year, but when they're not, you see them struggle in respawns. You see like you question where's the team that we saw last year, and then they'll come out for a series and just fry. And then so that's why I feel like if they switch the roles around a little bit, and maybe they did play with it in practice and it just didn't work out. But I feel like if they did switch the roles to that, I feel like you'd see them be more consistent in hardpoint, which has usually been their Achilles heel in the past. Which is why they're doing really good at gavutu right now too. I think like, you get them on gavutu, 3 ARs. That's where you see Dylan start cooking. He just looks really good, and that brings him a lot of slaying power. So this is my 2 cents, but maybe
You
they've seen
guys
something
made
in
all the
practice.
points that I was going to make. I mean, especially the one on what we saw Scump do, and he pulled out one. And that's the thing, like, Scump's 26, Attach is 25, even though he looks 18 still. Like, kind of a similar player when slaying SMG in their younger days. Now, seem to be rather well suited to, yet still, they can do it on the SMG. But Attach has even been a player for a few years now. We've always said, like, why not try him on the AR? And maybe, apparently they tried that, but didn't work out as of yet. So I don't know. I think he'd be perfect in a role like that. I think they might still need to make a roster move at some point here, but I think that it's worth a go on a more consistent basis because they didn't show me enough this tournament to prove that they can actually be a championship contender again as they were for a period at the end of last year. The next team up, of course, the team that beat them. We move into the top 6 range. Los Angeles Thieves find themselves here. In fairness, a rather challenging bracket. They played Ultra first round. They lost that game 5. We'll talk about that series in a little bit more detail in a second. They beat Thieves. They beat Solana 3-0. They then beat Rocker 3-1. Not all that hard victories. Then they get 3-2'd by yourselves in FaZe. Now, and got reverse swept actually in that series as well, which is pretty heartbreaking for those guys. So the 2 series they lost, both game 5. I think very telling. Their hardpoint still excellent. All 3 guys outside of Octane played great. Like Kenny is great at this game. I really like watching him. Draza is fantastic. Still one of the most underrated players in the league, no question. And Envoy has been really good to start this year off, actually. I was really impressed with him this weekend. Octane had something like a 0.8 something maybe it was a 0.9, but even then it was his damage per 10 minutes was clearly the lowest on the team by a margin, especially in the FaZe series, like pretty woeful stats. So again, another one of these kind of main ARs that's having a difficult time. But really, to me, it's their search and destroy, right? Like the FaZe series is acceptable. Getting reverse reps, getting 3-2'd by FaZe, it's whatever. FaZe are that type of team. They caught fire in the lower bracket as expected. It's the Ultra series to me that's not unforgivable, but just the fact that Ultra couldn't win a hardpoint against anyone, let alone the best hardpoint team in the game, arguably in Thieves, but yet you can't win either with the searches or the control. Like that just screams to me of a team that's not yet in position to be successful. So that's the issue. Don't seem to have all that much clutch factor. Eventually, they're not going to be winning 80, 90% of their hardpoints, and they're going to be winning more like 75% of them, which means that their search has to come on leaps and bounds, which is a clear issue for this team right now. If it can, I think they can get there. They lost to 2 good teams, but I think they'll be disappointed with top 6. But I also think they'll know what they have to work on. What do you think, Austin?
Yeah, I just feel like once they get S&D, because even at the major right now, just looking at just the major, they were 6-1 in hardpoint, 2-4 in S&D, and then 2-2 in control. I don't think you can really win like hardpoint. Being an elite hardpoint team is great because that usually pushes you to be able to win the series or at least push you to a game 5. But if your S&D is just not there, if you're not a threat in S&D, you later in these tournaments you're just not going to be able to win. Like that's usually like the Achilles heel. So that's just if they can get their S&D into gear, they'll be like honestly a top 2 team. Like they would be disgusting. I love Kenny's playstyle in this game. I think he's really, really good. Draza is like one of the most underrated. I feel like he came out of nowhere the last 2 years. He's finally getting his credit. He's like one of those like just ratty players that just does whatever the team needs. He's literally just always there, always doing good, always doing stable. Like you know what you're getting out of him. Envoy has been Black Ops 4 levels Envoy. Honestly, this is probably the best we've seen him since Black Ops 4, since it switched to 4v4. Um, I think he's playing phenomenal, and you know Octane has had his struggles. I feel like at the beginning of the year, you remember how I said like my one worry with this team is how Kenny and Octane were gonna like mesh together, because I always thought like that could be like how they can conflict with roles and how they like to play, and that one of them was gonna have to take a back seat, and I was wondering how that would affect that said player. I just feel like I feel like if the other three players are frying, they don't really need Octane to do well. They need him to be the super soaker to make the smart plays around the map. If the other three are frying, but for S&D, you just have to get more out of everybody. I feel like they're struggling in that. On the control, because I did see that get brought up. I don't hate that they play Tuscan. I really don't, because this is how I think of it. On Tuscan, it is very easy to lose track of players. It's very easy to make plays where you're just cutting through the back of the spawn. That is Envoy written all over it. That is Draza written all over it, right? And on Tuscan, it's harder for your AR players to do well, right? Because it's more of an SMG style map. So if you have better AR players, which Kenny is one of the best AR players, Octane is historically been one of the better AR players, right? Then they have a better chance of doing well on an SMG style map, right? They will have more talent to do better on those SMG maps. So I don't hate that they're playing Tuscan, especially because on gavutu, a lot of teams they're 2 or I think on gavutu through Major 1 qualifier and the Major 1, they're 4-0. But I also see how other teams would like to challenge them on that, because you can bust out a third AR, you can play way more slowly. I feel like it's easier to lose a gavutu if you're an elite gavutu team than it is to lose a Tuscan if you're an elite Tuscan team. So that's just where my head's at. Also, some of those matches they get pinned on Tuscan because they were the lower seed or something, but it's definitely one of those things where they're gonna have to just. I feel like if they can get their S&D into a good place, you're gonna see this team be a constant threat to win championships.
Yeah, I agree. I just think the one thing that I really noticed was that the S&D is like almost nowhere. And I think we kind of expected that coming into this year, that would be the area they would struggle, because on paper they're such a good respawn team. But it's just Kenny and Octane combined. Like Kenny's got a 0.6 for this event, or 0.68 in S&D, and Octane had a 0.63, and it's like can't
Rarely see
I
that.
just feel. What are you gonna say?
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I just think if they just clean up their S&D, they should be completely fine, because their hard point's still really, really good. And I think it was kind of surprising to see Octane to be the one that went to a 0.8 this event. Like Kenny has a 1.02, but then you see Octane's in the hill for 93 seconds a map, and that's like insane. But their stats and hardpoint are actually like really similar, apart from Octane's got double the hill time. So I'm just wondering, I don't know, like is there pacing off in like any modes? Like do you think
What do the
control
engagement
any
stats
pace
look
much?
like? What do the engagement per 10 minutes look like between Octane and Kenny?
Doesn't say on our site, but
Okay, I'm
kills per
sure I
10
could find
minutes.
it.
Kenny has 23.8 kills per 10 minutes in hardpoint, and Octane has
Octane is
23.3.
Yeah, Octane's much lower than everybody else, and Envoy's much higher than everybody else. It's like Kenny and Draza have the same. Octane's about 7 engagements below them, and then Envoy's about 7 higher than Kenny and Draza. So the difference between Octane and Envoy is about 14 to 15 engagements per 10 minutes. So that's actually a lot.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty insane. So just something to think about, right? But I kind of agree that on the search front, that's the main problem. But still, like OpTic had an awful start to the year in search, and they've turned it on very quickly. I think part of that is just due to how well they play the round after getting first blood. And I'm not really sure Thieves are even getting that many first bloods. So they got to think about that. Because Octane, honestly, like in terms of the sniping battle, I thought the start of the year, Octane was probably the most clinical sniper, or the sniper who got the most action out of like bang for buck, how many snipes Octane's shots to be compared to how many kills and how much impact it had. I thought he was the highest percentage at the start of the year. That seems to have dropped off quite quickly.
Sniping's overrated,
Insights
though,
maybe
man.
taking over, and even then, sniping just straight up might be overrated, right? But that's the thing. Like when they actually looked decent and could win searches, Octane was doing well with the sniper, and since it's kind of gone out of the meta a little bit. On some maps, certainly, he's kind of fallen off. So definitely a lot to work on there. The other top 6 team is Boston. Congratulations. I talked to Zed before the weekend. He said if they got top 6, he'd go and buy them a steak dinner, I guess on the company. But, they were going to be happy with top 6 if they got it. They got top 6, and still, their bracket was rather easy, all things considered. You're free to go, Lion. Permission granted. And like they played Mutineers and they played Legion, so I'm not going to give them all that much credit, to be honest. They lost 3-2 to Ultra, a team that still couldn't win a hardpoint this event, and Zinni was out of his mind, but they still lost the game 5. So I'm still not convinced. The one thing I will say about this team is that not only did Zinni show up, especially on the final series they played, but Nero was a monster this tourney in terms of engagements, kills, impact. He really showed why he actually belongs on this team, because going into this, I had him near the bottom of my kind of rookie rankings. But now he's definitely moved up the pecking order a little bit in my eyes. So I'm impressed with that. But it does leave me thinking that TJ might be on the chopping block. What do you think, Austin?
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty abysmal up until probably the final 2 series.
TJ is Austin on his back. We're back.
No, Neuro. Like I thought Neuro was.
Oh, Nero. Sorry.
No, I thought he was pretty average for most of the qualifiers and the start of the tournament. But then he really, I think it was against Paris and against Toronto, he did very, very good. So if he can keep up that consistency, the only thing is I feel like out of they've played 10 series, I feel like we've seen him do good, really good in 2. We've seen him start maps out really good, but then not end maps out too hot. So you just have to find a way to have him consistently do pretty well. If they can do that, then he will be the most impactful player on this team, hands down, 100%. He has that capability and that potential. He just has to unlock that and keep that going throughout maps, because I feel like he's like the one player where he starts out like freaking 8-0 on every hard point, and then you look back and he's like 19-19, and it's like he just has to keep going with that. But the thing with this team is take out bow cage, hardpoint, because they're 0-3 on bow cage. I don't know why they keep playing that. They are 4-0 at the major at all the other maps. They're 2-0 in Berlin, 1-0 in gavutu, 1-0 in Tuscan. I don't know why they just get rid of bow cage and they would get so much better.
They keep playing against good teams. I feel like it's because they were so
Yeah.
good at it when the team first formed online. Like I always used to see him giving OpTic like a really hard time on Bacage. So maybe that's why they still stick to it, but I don't know.
Yeah, but hands down, this has got to be the worst control team I've ever seen. They did it, like the thing with them is like they were really good at S&D at the beginning, and then they kind of fell off in S&D. Now they picked up at hardpoint. If they were good at control during all of this, they would be winning so many more series. But they are pretty woeful at control. I will say that they need to stop paying gavutu, because I just feel like that has been their Achilles heel in a lot of these series. They're 1-5 in gavutu. I mean, over the course of the entire season, they are 2-8 in control and 1-6 on gavutu. Like that is definitely their weakness. If they're able to get better at that, or to start finding what, because in the first 3 series of the qualifiers they were amazing at S&D. If they can be really good at S&D and on the 3 maps in hardpoint, that can win them series, and that's where they can continue being a top 6 team. But control will always be their Achilles heel, because I feel like that will always be one of the most important maps of a series, because control shuts down reverse sweeps. It gives you that 2-1 advantage and regains you momentum if you're tied 1-1. It can kick off a reverse sweep for you, give you all that momentum. Like that control is so valuable in a series. And if you are a bad control, I'm talking bad control team, it just shatters so much momentum you have going into the second half of a series. So they'll have to look to improve that going into the next stage. That will be definitely what they're going to be working on the most, hands down.
Yeah. It does seem though like a big part of control currently. I'm kind of going to skip over Boston a little bit. I just don't really care.
I don't
Um,
blame you.
but with control, I feel like right now it's a battle to find out who can get that game 5 or round 5. And it's like most of the time, whenever the team gets that round 5, they're going to win. And so it's mainly about like awareness right now of the kills. And we saw that with you, Austin, or not you, but FaZe in the final with that decision to play the lives even though you were 1 down.
By the way, right now we play with kills as the decider for round 5, and on the scoreboard there's no deaths, there's no kills, there's no nothing. Like, can we
You have
just
to guess.
like, yeah, you do literally have to guess. How stupid is that? But go back to the point.
Yeah, but if you were guessing
good
as
point.
well, and it's that close, why would you risk it? Why wouldn't you
Have
just
some
play
guy
for it?
calculating that, maybe.
Well, you know what happened? So, you
We
do
could just talk about this
lives.
now.
You do lives remaining at the each of the the rounds, and you do the math that way. But I don't think team kills count. Team kills obviously count towards taking away lives, but they don't count towards the round 5 kill. And if you go back, there were so many team kills in that one map. I feel like that's what made the math mixy. I feel like they thought they were up 1, but in reality, we had at least 3 team kills, and I think Texas had 2 or 3 too. It was really weird how that went, but yeah, you keep going, Line.
What I was saying
won't
was,
be a problem anymore.
do you think that control, like especially in Boston's case, gets like mixed up a lot with the change to ticks? Because I find that changed a lot last year as well, and defense became a lot less like key halfway through the season. I think naturally it progressed that way anyway with the playstyles, but what do you reckon?
I mean, maybe, but you're talking like some of these players have like 0.7s in control.
They weren't
You're
that
just
bad. Boston
they
at this
are.
point had a
Boston.
1.03, 1.04, 0.96, 0.88. Like they weren't completely negative. You can still win maps with those KDs, but they were just shit.
No, I'm talking about just in control. Like just in control,
That is
they
the
just.
problem.
Oh, is it? Like
Yeah.
Over the I have the qualifier and
It's the
major 1.
Major.
Yeah. So they got a lot better than going into the or to the major, because the qualifiers they must have been really bad. But yeah, maybe. I think once it goes to ticks, because it's not at ticks yet. I don't know when it will be, but when it goes to ticks, it's basically a brand new mode. It changes everything. I mean, I'll touch more on it later. I guess I'll just break it down now. But right now on defense, you don't really get rewarded for being hyper aggressive and like shutting down points. You have to like play turtled up. Like it doesn't matter if you give them a point, as long as you turtle up and then don't lose lives playing aggressively. Whereas then on offense, you are just you get put into these weird spots. So when it changes to ticks, you're going to see defenses become really hyper aggressive, trying to make plays so ticks aren't given for free. You saw that on Garrison last year. They would get like, you would see like a team would get a tick or two, and then you would see like a pinch play develop out of like top green and through the front of the point. I like that. It changes it completely. It changes how you play offense, because who cares of lives? You just have to capture that point by any means necessary. And once it goes to that, yeah, that could flip. That could flip for any team. So, I mean, if it does go to that, then they just have to rely on the teamwork that is making them good in the other modes, because that's what will, teamwork, coordinated plays, communication for what's open, where they can hit. That's what will transform that mode. So they could definitely be banking on that changing. But for right now, they definitely need to do something, because I don't think 2 and 8 control is, you want to be at least 50-50. So they're gonna have to find ways to improve that.
That's it for the top 6 and below. Let's talk Toronto. Crazy tournament. I don't know how these guys do it, because I didn't think they were going to be that great this tourney. They weren't. If they could win a hard point, they might have done something here. But they literally went 0-7 in hard points this event, which means every series they won, which was, well, I guess they only won one series. Or no, actually, yeah, how did it go? They ended up, was there a bracket swap? Yeah, because the beat thieves. Yeah,
that's but 2 game 5s.
Yeah, I was looking at it like that. But yeah, the both series they won was 2-3-5, and then they still couldn't win anything. So really weird that their hard point was so poor. Impressive that they've managed to get top 4 given this situation. I do expect them to bounce back to some degree. I mean, they're not going to go 0-7 forever, but you know, I don't know if I want to say I'm not that surprised at this performance. Like, I thought they'd win a hard point, but I didn't think they looked that good going in. They played kind of at the level I expected them to, still got that clutch factor on LAN, still got that ability to be very difficult to beat and to put away. But when they played an actual good team in FaZe, they just got 3-0'd comfortably. Like last year, they put up a fight in those series. This year wasn't close so far. So I'm expecting something of a bounce back, but I think they're clearly not a top 3 team in the game anymore. And I think they've got an awful lot of work to do. And it's tough to even pinpoint individual players because Kleenex was super good in the qualifiers. This event, he had a pretty rough one. Very impactful, but statistically not where he needs to be. Cammy hasn't been that great so far this year. If anything, Bant has been their best player, which is not a good sign. And as we even talked about earlier, Insight on the main AR seems like just, he's a very kind of traditional, slow, methodical AR. And we've seen pretty much everyone who plays like that in this game so far is struggling. The only time he doesn't struggle is when he brings up the sniper in search. So I think this team has an awful lot to work on and to consider here because I think they frankly scraped top 4. And I still think they can get back to this level. But just the way the top teams are playing with the swagger they play, I think it's going to be tough for Ultra to get back up there. I don't know what you think, Austin.
Yeah, I think being bad at hardpoint is just absolutely devastating them. You can't start. You're basically starting every series down 0-1. Like that, you're just banking. You're just banking, and they're not even killing it really in control. They're 2-2 in control, so that's where you see them struggle. They're 5-1 in S&D, and S&D honestly it's really hard to be very consistent S&D across the whole season. So you would expect once. Because like right now they're 2-0 on Tuscan, 2-0 in Berlin. So if I wanted to go see, like revamp some of our Berlin, I'm obviously gonna go watch the best teams on that map. So teams like Toronto are gonna start getting heavily anti-stratted. I feel like that's what happened to us in Tuscan this past week. Is just we were super good in Tuscan and scrims, and everyone was just heavily anti-stratting. Like that's what's gonna end up happening with Toronto. So that's why you can't really rely on just S&D to win you series. So I don't know. Like last year, if you look at in my opinion, who was the best 2 players, it was Cammy and Insight. And right now, those 2 guys are struggling. Like not struggling, but like not anywhere near the level they want to be at, especially compared to last year. And I feel like that's where it's hurting them the most because, yeah, I mean teamwork is very good for this game for winning, but you also do need at least some slaying power, and I feel like that's what they're just missing that level of AR play that they had from last year. Which it could just be they're in a slump right now, but they could also work their way back to that point.
Yeah, I agree. I think the ARs just aren't playing at like MVP level like they were last year. I think Kleenex is still that hyper aggressive entry sub that he's been. I think his KD's a little bit lower than last year, and then Bance is playing around the same level. I just think I was quite impressed by them, honestly, this weekend. The fact that they were even able to make it top 4, I thought it was impressive. So I think they know clearly what their issues are. I think that's what they got from this is that they know what to work on, and they're still decent enough in the other modes to be able to get them far enough. What do you reckon, Austin? Because I know you want to say something.
Well, everyone looks at that as like a glass half full kind of moment, but like honestly, if I'm them, I'm fucking pissed. We just went 0-7 in hardpoint. Like I don't care that we made top 4. We just made top 4 because of our S&D. If our S&D starts going down more, I mean, what's the floor? Top 8? Like Seattle.
Half empty, mate.
Yeah, I know, but you have Toronto that just went 0-7 in hardpoint. 0-7. That's a team that people are like. If a team people want, they expect you to be winning tournaments, going 0.
They literally won the opening weekend.
Like to put it in perspective, like if we just went 0-7 in hardpoint, people would be fucking shredding us. Like I don't know. Like I'm happy they finished top 4 and like their S&D is amazing, but if this team they probably are so angry right now. Like knowing them, they're probably so pissed right now that they went 0-7 and people are still like patting them on the backs. They're probably pissed. Like I don't know. Like I feel like this team right now should be competing for championships. And even though they got top 4, I feel like they were never in the running because they were constantly starting on the back foot every series. And I would be pissed. Like that's obviously not something you want. So yeah, like right now, yeah, exactly. Like right now, New York and them have the same level of hardpoint. That level of play, like from Toronto, like the players they have on that team, the fact that they are on the same level of play, hardpoint play as New York is just, I would like, I don't know. That's just they have to turn that around. They will turn it around just because I know them. They're going to be freaking grinding the next 2 weeks until they turn that around because if I know them right, they're probably pissed that they just went 0-7, and even like they joke about it, but I don't know. That's just one thing. I would be pissed because you basically just got top 4 just because you're S&D. I think that's the hardest level, the hardest game mode to keep your level at. So if their hardpoint stays at that level or even just a little bit better than what they just did, and their S&D falls off even a little bit, you're talking about getting 3-0'd, 3-1'd by the best teams, right? And that's just Toronto wants to be and should be a top 3 team this year.
They would have got worked in the finals if they were put up against OpTic. Like, I mean, maybe not in the search. It would have been very similar to what you guys, to be honest, because they'd have just
honestly,
lost the respawns. And it's just demoralizing.
But how are you ever going to beat like LA Thieves? You're not going to beat LA Thieves doing that. You're not going to beat OpTic.
I did beat them this tournament, to be fair.
Oh yeah, shit.
But you know,
consistently, I should say,
but like, you know, you are right that like Thieves and Ultra had very, they were basically polar opposites this tournament, right?
Yeah, like so good at one game mode and then so ass at the other game mode. Like that's.
It kind of feels like it's almost come out of nowhere because it was only last weekend that they were almost 100-point clubbing Los Angeles Thieves on Bacage. So, look, I still think they have room. But what I will say is the other thing that I think they're going to be pissed about is the fact that they are no longer the #1 European team. Shout out the boys. I don't know who called it last week.
We did.
We both did. The Iron Robin celebration.
But wait, hold on. One other thing is, if you look, like, yes, they were doing phenomenal on Bocage. They were 3-1 on Bocage in the qualifying matches, but they are now 1-3 on Berlin, 0-3 on gavutu, and 0-2 on Tuscan. That means if you just get Bocage out of there, they are 1-8 on the other 3 maps. That's where it's. I don't know.
Still talking about Toronto. Is that Toronto?
Yeah.
That's the final point.
Yeah, that was just the final point. So they have to just expand their map pool because right now I feel like that's why they went 0-7 because teams are just like, fuck Bocage, let's go, we're square up and everything else. That's why you saw a lot of gavutu versus them.
It's a good point. Yeah,
Clinics was going crazy on Bocage. Like that's
Clinics is going to struggle,
palace, man. He's disgusting on that map. He just fucking chows.
They won Bocage without Cammy. They won with Hixie as well.
Yeah, I mean against Florida. I mean, you know, come on.
Yeah, but Florida,
you're
it's
right.
like their map. Florida love Bocage.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. It's just like toss a coin, you know.
Yeah.
Let's talk London, baby. Here we go. Top 3. I was very impressed by London. I think realistically, I know we predicted them to make grand finals. We got the top 3 right, by the way, just in a slightly different order. So I thought that was typical from us, to be honest. Especially because that lad in the chat, who I don't see in the chat today, by the way, was saying how London were terrible. They were going to lose to LNG. They were going to get double rounded. I want to see him say something in the chat right now about our bracket from last week because we didn't do a bad job. So anyway, London, I'm really impressed. We can talk about OpTic, London, Veto's maybe here in a second. Just the way they played this weekend, like they beat Gorillas, close series 3-2, grinded it out. I really felt like they were always going to win that just because LNG can't clutch a game 5. And London, this is what I'm so impressed with the fact that like they're good in all the game modes. It's not just their hard point. It's not just control. They can clutch a search and destroy. And this weekend, it was actually Zero that turned up massively. And what I'm most excited about the future of this London team is the fact that the other 3 guys did not play as well as they have been online. And yet they still come top 3. And Gizmo's talking about the things that are going on in his personal life that have been problematic over the weekends. They were the team that certainly, I think, played OpTic and FaZe closest. So to me, I think they have to be number 3 team in the game. They also placed top 3. And I just think that when they get even more comfortable on LAN, which they will do over time, like this is a big environment for some of these guys, Nasty and Gizmo especially, right? Kind of first big set of series on LAN against the biggest like OpTic crowd we've probably ever seen. This is going to be a tough time for some of these rookies, and they handled it well, played closer against OpTic and FaZe than pretty much anyone else did. And with a huge amount of like potential going forwards. This is why I'm really excited about London, because I think just looking at this weekend and how good OpTic and FaZe were, especially on Sunday, London did as good as they possibly could have done here, I think. The Ultra win as well was impressive. The loss to OpTic was certainly interesting because the game one, OpTic decided to allow Berlin to be picked. I know what your take is on this, Austin, but before you discuss the London team in more detail, just because some were suggesting that did OpTic let it through? Because they could have either gone gavutu or Berlin, effectively, which way they were going to go. They decided to ban gavutu and play London on Berlin, which is a very good map for London and not particularly good for OpTic. Some people were suggesting they did that deliberately to get practice on playing Berlin before the grand finals. If that's the case, fair enough, but I think they maybe took London a little bit too lightly if that is indeed the case. In fairness, they play almost flawless COD for the next 3 maps to win the series, so, full credit to OpTic on that one. But Rambo actually did talk about this, did he? Okay, well, fair enough. I'll give it to them then. But I still think it was a risky move from OpTic to go down 1-0 against a team like London. That they're no pushovers, but yeah, I don't know. I'm impressed this weekend, Austin.
Yeah, so on that one veto front, I just think if I had to say who the top 4 like gavutu hardpoint teams are right now, it'd probably be like Texas, us, LA Thieves, and London. And especially the way that Gizmo plays on the map, he's been really successful and locking down points of that map. They probably thought, let's ban a strength of both of ours and then pick Berlin, which even though OpTic has not looked good on in the past, maybe they thought in practice that they looked good and fixed some of their issues, and that London had some exploitable like parts of the map, especially on that map because Berlin is technically like really what Bocage should be. It's super mixy, barely any holds, tons of breaks. It's just craziness. And then you get Bocage, which is actually super rotational heavy. Like you got to rotate the P2, P4, P5. Like you actually have to rotate to lock these down, and you can usually lock it down. Berlin's is the opposite. It's almost like Bocage is like Apocalypse, which is really weird because it's a smaller map. It shouldn't be, but it's weird like that. But that's probably what OpTic was thinking about. Let's just square up on maps where we can break them, where we can, London relies so heavily on breaking on that map. They rarely ever rotate. They probably saw that and thought, let's try to exploit that. But London overall, super good tournament. I think they even do better next tournament. I know Gizmo was going through a lot. He was not in the right headspace, which is why I think you saw him have I'll say bad individual performance this event. But the fact that Trey looked amazing, Nasty had his moments, Afro was Afro, he played amazing. Like I feel like that is very good for this team going into the future. And the fact that they made this deep of a run in Major 1, I fully expect them to be in that I fully expect them to be in that top 4 for the rest of the season. I feel like they're going to be a threat. I feel like it's going to be like the top 6 teams are really the top 6 teams for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and I think they're all like quite interchangeable in that top 6. But I just found the fact that Zero played like IW0 this event and like essentially carried them. He was the only player on the team with above a 1 KD, which is wild.
Yeah.
It's wild for like a many are in this game,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, good point. But it was just, Gizmo not playing at that level. Like he was, I would say, rookie of the year throughout the qualifiers. And it was quite early to say, but that's what it looked like.
Oh no, he was killing it.
Yeah. And he ended up with a 0.81 for this event. And I just found like they aren't like crazy good at any game mode. They're quite like consistent across each of them. And so I don't think they have that game mode they can just rely on like some teams to like get them through a series. But I think when they're like firing on all cylinders, they can compete with any team. It just seemed like when they came up against the 2 best teams in the game right now, OpTic and FaZe, they couldn't quite hang, but they could bring it back when things were started to shift in their momentum.
Yeah, the 1-5 comeback, I remembered that.
About them is that they do have ice as well as being rather consistent in each game mode. So that's like a really good starting point, I think, for them throughout the year, that they can bring series back and that they're not like a pushover in any mode at all.
Yeah, I don't know if they've lost a game 5 yet.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking. They've played like 3 game 5s, and I think they might have won all of them. And Aki's right in the chat about the online versus LAN, but if anything, I think that's a great stat for London. Like, you're looking at the fact that Gizmo had a 0.4 difference between online and LAN. Like, that's not just going to That's not going to stay the same going forwards. So,
I mean, the real issue with them is just they just have to expand their map pool. Like in S&D, for instance, they're 1-0 on Bow Cage, they're 3-0 on Desert Siege, they're 1-6 on Berlin, right? And they just don't play Tuscan. They ban Tuscan all the time. So I feel like they need to find a way to be able to open up Tuscan and allow yourself to ban Berlin, because right now they are just not in on Berlin. And it's the same thing on Control. Like they're 4-2 on gavutu, they're 1-2 on Tuscan. So their map pool just has to get a little bit expanded. Like even in Hardpoint right now, they're 5-1 on Berlin, and then they're 3-2 in gavutu, 3-2 in Tuscan. So like they have like strengths in each mode, but then they also have like glaring weaknesses in each mode. So if they're able to fix up their weaknesses, expand that map pool a little bit more, they'll be such a dangerous team going forward.
Yeah, I mean, just before we move on to the final two, like my hope is that they don't do a Seattle right after a good tournament, just fall off a cliff. I think there's always a chance of that, but I don't know. I think the mentality of these guys is somewhat different. The personalities, how well they seem to mesh as a team, and also the fact that accuracy. If his star players on Seattle aren't going off, the team is chalked. But on this team, if the star players aren't going off, you can still have 0 drop a 1.3. So, you know, that's kind of the upside here, comparing those two teams with kind of similar philosophies on building them. Okay, let's talk top two. Sorry, go on.
One more. I think the biggest upside for them is that they still got top 3, considering they weren't even playing at their close to their potential. So that's that's big. It's the same with Toronto, I guess, but less worrying because they had no bad game modes. But moving on.
No, I mean, this should be super. I'm sure the guys are feeling really positive about this. And you can look at the stats all day, but like if you look at the teams they played LAG, who were actually playing pretty well the first series, then Ultra, OpTic, and FaZe in the next 3. Like your stats aren't going to be great playing these teams at the end of the day. Okay, grand finals. FaZe, man, I mean, an unbelievably resilient team, honestly. There's no, like, I'm sure Lion as an OpTic, kind of supporting OpTic and going full green wall. And in fairness, I'll support in the green wall this weekend because it's good for views, baby. But you know, when FaZe went down to losers and they completed that crazy reverse sweep, and we can talk about that here in a second. It's just, if you're an OpTic fan, you want someone else to knock out FaZe because you never know what they're going to do. And they did exactly that and romped through the losers bracket. I was talking about like which team in COD history is the hardest to beat. And you can look at the dynasties, complexity, OpTic, but you can argue those are in different eras where the competition wasn't as great. In the modern day, there's no team that's harder to beat than FaZe. It's incredible like how well you have to play to beat FaZe. It happened last year when Toronto beat them in the finals of stage 2. Like, they had to play impeccable COD and Bance had to drop a 1.4. In this series, again, it was so close. So many of the maps were super back and forth, could have gone either way. FaZe was winning the searches. Just a great battle between two phenomenal teams. You know, we do have to talk about the reverse sweep, of course, because Simp in the first series just single-handedly just demolished Breach. It was insane. He had like a 1 point, I don't know, he had a 2.1 in the Control. That's all I know. And he was ridiculous in the other game modes. For the rest of the weekend, though, didn't really play spectacularly. Had a few maps here or there. But I mean, the OpTic reverse sweep really catalyzed it, right? Because if OpTic lose that, if they get 3-0'd there, who knows how the rest of the weekend goes, even though they have shown a lot of resilience, in fairness, this OpTic team. But yeah, up to 0 comfortably. I felt like there was always a chance here for OpTic to bring this back because they've been very good at control, and like with Dashi playing how he is, there's always a good chance you're going to get defense round 5 with him just dropping a 1.5 every map, if not higher on that particular map. And yeah, they bring it back in that map, and then all of a sudden it's a game 5. Scump like drops some crazy numbers on the gavutu hardpoint, and then just a complete collapse in FaZe. And I don't know what your perspective on this was, Austin, because sometimes you're going to go from 2-0 to 2-2. It's just how it goes. But you know, losing the game 5 in the fashion you guys did was a shock to many people, like completely bowled out from the Tuscan. As you said, you think, you know, getting anti-stratted a fair bit, but I was really impressed by the discipline for OpTic. That was the number one thing I took away this weekend. Every time they got a first blood, hold position, take your time. There was so many just beautiful, as someone who enjoys strategy and tactics within esports and COD, especially where it is applicable, there was nothing more satisfying than seeing OpTic get first blood, sit and hold map control, wait for about 40 seconds until FaZe decided, okay, we probably better stack a bomb site here because we've got to take our chances. OpTic kind of saw the information, went to the other site, got it down, won the round. Nothing more beautiful than that. And I'm sure Rambo was just, you know, having a good time watching that behind the scenes. But yeah, I remember for a long time. What's your take on this, Austin? How do you feel like what went wrong in that kind of reverse sweep?
Just right now, our control. Still think we're a very good control team, but the problem is when it's by kills that actually hurts us a lot more than other teams because our play style. Like think of last year, like on like raid, when we're on defense. Like we're in your face, we're in your base, we're in bedroom, just completely chowing out as soon as you spawn. We're like retaking ring really fast. Um, right now, you actually get punished more for doing that because that play style this induces lives lost on both sides, so you've drained clock. And right now, if you play that way, your defenses are more even, and then it forces you to be really good on offense. So I feel like right now with the way that kills decide map 5, it just isn't really favoring us if we aren't winning all our offenses, and like that's kind of where we're at right now. And so that's why I think once we switch to tick bases, because if you actually look at it, we're doing extremely well on capturing ticks on offense.
Mm.
I feel like we get a lot of like 4 or 5 tick rounds if we're losing, but we're just not finishing it off. I don't know. You can see that in a bunch of rounds. We're just not finishing it. But in the future, when it does switch to ticks, I feel like that's going to be a big help to us. But that's where, like right now, OpTic obviously won that game 3. You've completely changed momentum. You win that map 4, and then momentum's just on your side. In the grand finals, we lost both controls. Like that gavutu control would have been a huge momentum swing. The Tuscan control would have been a huge momentum swing, but that's something where we had it like literally we had the greatest third game mode season in the history of Call of Duty last season on control.
Yeah.
And it's just like we just have to translate just a little bit of that to this season. Even though like if you look at our like we're phenomenal against almost any other team in control. I think we were like 5-1 in Tuscan going into that maps versus Texas. But it's just that's just the difference between winning tournaments and gaining that momentum to getting snowballed on and losing it. So that's the major difference because I feel like in hard point in S&D we're pretty even. I feel like if you look at the 10 maps right now, like I feel like it's like split 5-5 on who's like better at it. Maybe like 4-6 towards Texas, but it's still pretty even. But the major swing of that is both controls right now. I just don't think we're like that's just where if we unlock our potential on that, or if it switches the ticks and our play style like gets elevated because of that, I feel like that's where the difference is right now. And if we expand on that, we're gonna do a lot better.
Yeah, I agree. I do find the control a bit strange right now. I will say, and I think everyone does. It's just it makes it super like calculated up until like the last round, and everyone's playing for that last round. So I don't know. And they changed it last year. It was the same at the start of last year, and then when it changed, the mode actually became a lot more viewable.
Yeah.
I was just looking at the stats though for FaZe, and I was just shocked to see, like in kills per minute in hardpoint, Abeezy's way below everyone else, including Arcitys. Like he averaged 21.9 kills in hardpoint, and then the next lowest is Arcitys at 24.3. And I'm wondering why is that the case, considering he's the entry sub? And I just want you to touch on that possibly, Austin, because I feel like you would know better than I would.
Well, he's just if you look at it, I feel like he actually has more hill time than most people. Like usually he's the one that's in the hill, holding down close angles when he's in the hill, or he's been taking a lot of routes. He's just been playing like more of a smarter game that way. But also I feel like in hardpoint we are not the. It's so weird in practice we're doing amazing, and then when we go into the games we're not as consistent, and we find ourselves getting into these holes, which actually ends up hurting our subs more because then you just start breaking. When you're breaking, usually your subs are the ones that get the worst end of the engagements because they're the ones running into a whole setup. So I feel like we just have to get our hard point into more consistent format where we're holding majority of the time. That will help unlock Tyler because then he can start getting aggressive and being unpredictable. What helps him. We also played quite a few gavutus. I feel like we played 3 gavutu hard points, 3 or 4. Which, as being the sole sub on that, you are just getting cooked for about 10 minutes. And that's pretty horrible. So like he's doing his job on those maps, even though he's not getting the most amount of kills or the highest KD. He's doing his job and pretty well. So that's just one thing. If you take out gavutu, I feel like he's been doing very good. If you look at the qualifiers, he had the highest KD out of everybody in hardpoint. But yeah, that's just something we just got to work on going into stage 2.
Yep.
Let's do OpTic then. The other side of the coin. Just a phenomenal weekend. Like, they're actually now on a 7-series win streak, which is quite impressive. And I'm sure their map records across that is very good as well. Just everything about this team feels just what the last year's team needed, but that has actually been delivered, you know? Like, it's kind of, it seems to me the perfect combination of what Dallas had and what OpTic had and what the teams lacked when they were individual entities. Like, OpTic last year lacked fundamentals and clutch factor. Dallas last year lacked slaying, effectively. And now you've got Dashi and Scump on that team instead of Crim and Vivid, and you've still got Shotzi and Illy. And huge credit to Illy. I was like the only person who had him in the top 10 players going into this major when Crone did the kind of list. I had him at number 7 going in here, which maybe was a bit optimistic, but he certainly played like at this major, especially on the Sunday. I've been waiting for Illy to have a series like this in some time, because when Illy is playing at that level, OpTic are just so hard to beat. Credit to Scump as well. He was a monster in the grand finals. I think one of the most exciting things here, if you're an OpTic fan, is that not only did it seem like this team has not only come so far in terms of the discipline, I think the Search and Destroy was fantastic outside of the FaZe series at the end, but even then they played pretty reasonable. There was a few moments where they're 2-round advantage, they throw it away, which is kind of a classic thing OpTic would do against FaZe last year. So again, I still think there's things going to be improved upon. And also the fact that Shotzi didn't really do all that much in the last year or so, in this series, sorry. Just looking at some tweet that Lion mentioned. We'll have a look at that in a second. But yeah, so Shotzi didn't really do that much. He had like a 0.9 in the grand finals. He wasn't the star player for this team. Dashi was the one with the crazy stats, which I think is kind of to be expected, especially with how he plays on that main AR, which just seems to just be perfect for the role in this game. So look, they're the new team to beat. They've been putting in so much work. I think their Search and Destroy kind of god spots paid off as well. We saw like the Shotzi final round of the Search and Destroy in round 10 to pull off that wallbang spot was pretty incredible. The question is, right, can they keep this up? Because Scump played a phenomenal weekend. It seems like he's really got his passion back for playing at this level again. And, it's been a long time coming for him. The 30th victory is insane. And the fact that he's won his first and most recent championship almost 11 years apart, that longevity is unprecedented. And there's still room for this team to get better. So I think it's a very exciting time to be an OpTic fan, Call of Duty fan, most certainly. I'll throw it to you, Lion, because you got the jersey on. You said you had a great time watching this weekend. I can't imagine why.
Yeah, so like my predictions, I realized that I seem to go against OpTic because I get the best of both worlds. If they win, I'm happy, and if they lose, I'm right on my predictions. So of course, once they win, I come back fully fledged as an OpTic supporter. But it does seem a little bit flaky, but it is what it is. Yeah, with OpTic this week, it was such great viewing to see them playing for the first time with perfect fundamentals. I tweeted this the other day, and it was just like, doesn't even make sense seeing OpTic play in that manner, like doing everything right in SND. When they get first blood, they're grouping up, they're playing smart. And hard points, their pacing is perfect now. And then seeing Scump pull out different weapons and frying, like it feels really weird because I'm so used to in the last, I guess, since champs and IW. I see you smiling, Rab. Is someone talking shit?
No, that's just funny. Like, that's just exactly right, though. Like, OpTic, watching OpTic the last few years, you always feel like they're going to find a way to lose.
Yeah, and like I would bet money on them, or I don't actually bet money on COD, but like in a tough situation, I couldn't imagine them like surmounting a comeback like they did against FaZe. Like, especially against that team as well, seeing that completely flipped a switch in their head. They must have just realized and like had the confidence to play the way that they know that they can play. And it was just awesome. They were completely flawless in respawn in the grand final, which is
That's
crazy,
remarkable.
especially against that team. And so I had a lot of fun watching this weekend. I also tweeted out that I'm starting to enjoy watching some of these maps as well. And people were saying like it's just because OpTic's in it, and that has some truth to it. But like I'm starting to enjoy the maps for what they are, and I think I took them at face value at first and didn't really enjoy them, but at this point, I'm actually enjoying the maps somewhat. But yeah, in OpTic, I think just Dashy was absolutely frying, and it's the first time he's really played like that in 3 years, and the whole team just seems to be playing perfectly. And Ellie was playing at the level that he played at around like stage 4 major last year. Like he played great there, but we see it kind of in moments with Ellie. And if he can play at that level consistently, I think this team's a force, because I think we're going to get a consistent Seth. He always seems to be like a 1 KD. Sometimes he has those events where he goes a little bit better and stuff, but you don't expect him to drop much less than that. Shotzi's like the most cracked out player in the league. Dashy, if he's playing like a fucking menace, then you can't beat them. And then Ellie as well. So it's just kind of crazy to see them at that level, because it's not what I expected at all.
Yeah,
What's your take, Austin?
I always expected them to be like up there. I thought like the top 4 teams going in was
Agree?
us, them, LA Thieves, and I think London, and then like Toronto 5th. So I thought they were always going to do really well. Yeah, obviously I think they're the best control team right now, and that's what's helping them really lock in these series and like take advantage of being good at hardpoint. So I think like the battle between our 2 teams is going to be pretty crazy this year. We play them actually again in 2 weeks. In
Yes,
the third week of the stage 2.
27th of March.
So yeah. The thing is like if Illy can stay that consistent, because that's literally the best tournament Illy's ever had in his career, by far. If he can keep that up, like he's the X factor for them, because Shotzi, I think he had a 0.9. And Scump did very good, especially on the 3 AR maps. But Illy was just like their star with Bruce, which is something I was kind of shocked about. But if Illy can keep that level of play up, which is kind of like what we said going into this, if Illy can perform better than like around like a 1, this team would be very, very well, or do really, really well. So that's, if he can keep that up, then I feel like if he can keep that up, they're like always going to be contender. So yeah, this team was their respawns are on lock, and that's pretty much what fans of the dynasty and OpTic in the past have become accustomed to. So I really think they're going to keep that up going throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, I guess new #1 team. We've got to talk about the whole replay drama real quick. What was that like from your perspective? Because from my perspective, I was kind of watching this round 5 thinking, wow, FaZe have just played impeccable control offense on gavutu and just broken OpTic's defense. Like, there was a time where OpTic were down like 5 kills, but still had the B point. It was like, okay, this is like a 50-50 round kind of now. And then you guys just rolled in, got 4 dead, and then just completely slayed the hell out of them, to be honest. And then like Arcitys, that the lag seriously kicks in, and it's incredible timing on that, frankly. And of course, we can talk about whether it should be even possible to lag on LAN or whatever servers they're playing on or whatever. But still, it was the case that Arcitys was having difficulties with the server, and he was even having difficulties before the round 5. But I guess they really came to a head there when he was effectively AFK and unable to move in spawn, while the rest of the guys had to go through and died and died over and over again to the OpTic guys sitting up on head glitches. So in fairness, kind of credit to the OpTic guys, because they could easily have got like frantic or just died and threw away lives and lost anyway. Like, they did well to stay composed and try and win, but there's no way they ever win that, I don't think, if Arcitys is still alive. Like, it's just not plausible to win a situation like that if there's 4 alive. There's maybe a 0.1% chance, but it could happen. So anyway, a 5v18 comeback, fair enough. Then the replay comes through, but of course, at the end of the day, it's still a defense for OpTic, which is significantly advantageous. They make it so that Scump gets the glide bomb back. So from
Did they?
I think they did. I thought that. Well, I thought that they.
No,
Did they
didn't.
not? Did he not have it?
Mm.
I thought that they said he was going to have it. I might be wrong. I honestly didn't look. I don't even think he used it. So maybe he didn't have it. I thought they made it so that he got like 7 free kills and then he would get the glide bomb. But they might not have done that. But however it went, like, some people are suggesting it should have been a full replay, which I don't think is. I don't know what's right, but pro players were saying it should have been a full replay, which I don't agree with. I mean, I probably don't agree with it mostly because it was already about 2 a.m. But like, what's your perspective of that, Austin? Because it was a really weird one. It was such a decisive moment in the series.
So from what I heard, so for people that don't know, LAN on PC in this game, there is no LAN. You play online. It's still online. Um, from what I heard in round 2, I don't know. People must know when you lag out, it's like you're still playing, but everyone stops moving, and then it just like rubber bands you back to where you were, and then it kind of like it's really weird. So that started happening in round 2, I guess, which is why our defense looked so atrocious. I guess is basically Alec just couldn't move, and from what I got told is
Oh, so
another, like, I think it was Tyler, was actually actively looking at his screen and just said, well, this game's done, and like literally just stopped playing. And then like that's why there was a pause requested, and then they never did it, and then they just kept playing. And then apparently in round, like, they was just horrible. It was like packet loss, I guess. And then in round 5, it was basically he was just not, he couldn't even play. And they kept thinking he was crashing literally just out of the game, where it would just say, like, timed out and then gone, but he just kept like rubber banding. And I don't know. I guess from my, like, I know this is probably isn't the most in. I don't know. He did tell the refs a timeout was requested. Um, you know that map was pretty fucking crucial. I still can't believe we lost that final round, because you have an 18% chance of winning an offense. Pretty much. It might be a little bit higher. It might be like 20%. And we had a 17v5 with A point gone, 2 ticks on B, in like a minute 20.
it was definitely chalk to OpTic.
And if you look at it, he was literally stuck on cliff for like 28 seconds. And then when he finally was able to get out of it, they went to his screen, and you could literally see him like shutter stepping. I still don't think we should have lost it, but that round was kind of like a heartbreaker, like going back to it. Just because of the way you spawn on gavutu to get to the B point takes about 30 seconds anyways. So we pretty much only had 2 pushes and a 3v4. It is what it is. I'm not gonna, like, can't really make excuses. We still lost 4 other maps, but it is what it is. It's online lands. It's just what we. I just hope it doesn't really happen again in the future. It just kind of.
Like, what ping are we talking? Like, what ping are they on to this server?
I don't know, like, because I wasn't there
The server,
for it.
like, at least the ping is like
It's
dead
not
equal, right?
Yeah. It just it's just you connect to a server. It's just it's just not LAN. So that one PC just started getting packet loss and was just unplayable, and he was livid. He was not happy, but
yeah, I don't blame him.
Going into the replay of that just one round, I mean, yeah, you have a 21% chance of winning that round on the replay compared to what we had going into that situation. It's just like, fuck. It is what it is. I mean, they made the call to do it. I don't blame them. It just is what it is. Sucks.
It's Vanguard, baby.
And it's Vanguard.
Honestly, like, as like the designated OpTic fan, I definitely think that obviously that map was done. FaZe was going to win that map. And so I think the fairest thing possible would have been to replay the whole map.
Yeah.
Just because, like Austin said,
they looked away. Like, I thought it was done.
95% chance, like 95 to 99% chance of winning that round in that situation, to less than.
I mean, bro, we survived a glide bomb. We captured the point.
Yeah,
we
it
had
was
2
so
ticks on
perfect.
B, a
You
12-point
actually did it so
lead,
well.
and then there's Alec just stuck like this on top of a cliff. And like, I knew it was bad that he was lagging bad that entire map, because all the CDL people who can see like the live feeds of the players like said like it should have been a full replay. So that tells me that like he was
bad for multiple rounds.
Fucked. Yeah. But
can we also touch on the fact that, and I know this is probably not a stat OpTic fans want to hear, but the stages, the team that was on FaZe's side of the stage won 3 series.
Oh, here we go.
Whereas the side OpTic were on 115. And then this is a stat I saw from Jaden, he's graphic designer. And he also posted that anyone sitting in Alec's seat, which was station number 7,
I'll address this.
At a 0.8 for the event.
That's fake news. That 0.8 stat is not true.
Oh, yeah, dude. Why
that's not true, because Ake said it on the flank, but some guy on the Reddit actually went through all the series played in that seat, and it was over the course of the event, it was a 0.95 for the player in that seat, which doesn't seem out of the ordinary. And the other element of it is that the team on the left was in almost all cases the team with the highest seed, of which the 15-3 scoreline seems maybe somewhat excessive, but in most series that's to be expected. Like you look at most of the series that were played, the higher seed won. So I don't think that there's anything to it, but it is always fun to keep your eyes on that because people always did used to say about the consoles back in the day. They're like, "Oh, this is a brick," or "This is the God box," or whatever, right? That you'd like it would give you a free 1.2. And there might be something that some PCs probably are marginally better than other PCs, but I don't think that's plausible in this case. I haven't seen enough evidence to say that that's the case. And I'm sure Esports Engine, even if it was the case, would get on top of it. MLG used to switch them around. Like they wouldn't just keep them in the same spot the whole weekend. They would switch them around and switch the Ethernets as well, which is of course the key point.
I don't think there was anything wrong with the PC. I literally just think during that map there was something wrong with the connection to the server with just literally that one PC. Because I don't think anyone else was lagging, but we still lost 4 other maps. We still lost the series. No one can make excuses. It just sucks because that would have been such a big momentum switch because that was what map 3, and we were down.
Yeah, that was
1-1.
It was 1-1 at that point. Yeah.
And yeah, like I just saw like it doesn't matter because we lost the replay, but I mean you have a 21% chance of winning an offense. Like even like anyone, it basically means 4 out of 5 times you play that the defense is going to win no matter what. I mean it sucks. Like because I guess at the beginning of the round it was fine. It was like halfway through capturing A, he started getting it. I don't know. Apparently it's so bad that everyone like thought the game was going to stop because he timed out, but he ended up not timing out. But I don't know. It sucks. It happens. I mean, honestly, like my point of view is we still lost 4 other maps and we should not have lost. It is what it is. We come back stronger next time. Honestly, I count that as a win in our book because I really like literally I think 99 out of 100 times we probably close that out in that situation. Because at that point you can just start head bashing ring and just trade out.
Get one
trade
kill
out
every push, like if you win the round.
So I mean, it's promising that we got that offense was so dominant up until that point. It's promising that we played that map pretty well, I would say. Because when I went back and watched, it's like we lost round 1 on offense, sure. The round 2 defense, I guess Alec couldn't even move, so and you could see it on the mini map. So like I'm like okay, so we had 2 rounds we lagged out. We played well in most of the rounds. So next time we play that, I still have confidence that it'll be a good matchup. So it just is what it is. It's just shitty. I just hope it doesn't happen for other teams in the future because it's just kind of shitty. I just hope it just doesn't happen much in the future. I don't know. Is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking forward to more OpTic FaZe battles, to be honest, for the rest of the year.
Be good.
Before we go on to talk about the matches this coming week, which is pretty crazy, we're going to do quickly because I believe it was Aki45623 put it in the chat earlier, a quick team of the major. So we've got to pick one player in each role who played the best at the event. So I guess main AR, you can't really look past Dashy, I don't think. I think honestly there's going to be quite a lot of OpTic players here. And I think understandably, it's probably going to be 3 OpTic, 1 FaZe, depending on how we want to do it. So to me, I think main has to be Dashy. But, I'll pass it to you, Lion. What are you thinking?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He got MVP, so yeah.
Zero can for sure be up there. But I was thinking we could either throw Zero in or we could do like 1 player per role. So if Dashy gets it, Zero can't get it, if you know what I mean. Depends how you want to do it. But I'm kind of down to go like 1 player per role.
Yeah. So flex, probably Cell, right? Cell had a 1.2 again. He played great.
I feel like the top 3 ARs was like MC, Zero, and Dashy. So like you plug and play any of those 3 into the 2 roles. I feel like that's pretty much what you get.
Like Illy kind of deserves it, but just for the finals. But I think like over the tourney, Celium probably still. I might just have to tip him slightly because Illy like played well, but he didn't really show up until the finals. Whereas Celium was pretty much great the whole tourney with a few off maps. Austin, your turn. We've got Dashy, we've got Cell. We need 2 SMGs.
I mean, I'll say it's probably between. I feel like you can do Scump. You can do Afro. I feel like had a low key good tournament. I feel like not a lot of people are talking about that. I'll probably say Scump though. Just I'll take the easy one.
Yeah. I was
I
gonna
think
take
he
Scum.
was like the biggest difference maker, especially on the 3 AR maps. He played really well. He's a heavy pre-aiming SMG. He's not like one of those cracked out SMGs. So like this game kind of like suits him because he's very good at just locking down areas of the map, and then that obviously translates over to the AR. So that's probably I'll just say Scump for the easy one for that one. He played really well for them.
We can decide the last one between us. I mean, I think it's kind of between. It's either one of the SMGs on FaZe. Like, I'm almost tempted to give it to a BZ because I honestly think he's been super impactful. And I think that Simp has been. He had his moments, but I don't think he played well enough quite to warrant it this time. Personally, for me, it's like between a BZ and Afro. And to be fair, we already have a FaZe player, so I'm kind of tempted to say Afro, even though I'm not fully sure he deserves it, but he did play great up until kind of some of the more challenging series. I also don't think Shotzi I mean, Shotzi played great, don't get me wrong. It was annoying to deal with, but I actually don't think he was anywhere near, not
His
anywhere
level.
near, but I don't think I think Shotzi can play way better than he did this weekend. I think there was a lot of he had a lot of inconsistent maps. That
Loki though, I don't think really many SMGs turned up. Period. If you think about it, I mean, Shotzi had a .9. I mean, I mean, uh, Chris and
He had a
Tyler.
.99. He had a 1, essentially.
No, he had a
he had a
.9.
.9 in the finals,
Oh,
but in
.9 in the
the
finals.
overall he had a .99, I think.
Okay, I thought he had a .9 for the whole thing. But like I feel like there was like SMGs this game. I feel like it's not really KD anymore. It's more of how much impact you're getting on the damage and kill side of it. So that's just one thing too.
I
feel
mean,
like
I'm going to be biased and vote Afro, so it's on you guys.
Yeah.
I would still.
Yeah,
But-
I mean, Chris, like pretty much like that Boston series was the craziest 3 maps I think I've ever seen a fucking SMG have. Period. I mean, I just don't want to be biased and just pick my guy just because of it, though. That's why I'm trying to like stay out of it. But if it's no FaZe or OpTic, then I would probably go Afro.
We got to go somewhat outside of FaZe OpTic, I think. I think that's fair. Okay, so our team of the week or team of the event is going to be Dashi, Celium, Scump, and Afro. I think that's pretty reasonable. That's obviously a nasty squad on paper as well. Okay, let's talk then about the matches that are coming up. I don't know if you want to bring this up on stream, Omar. This is the schedule for the coming 3 weeks. And I think briefly we'll discuss who has the hardest schedule. And then we will talk briefly about this week because we've already been going a very long time. But if you guys can see this in the chat further up, Omar, let me know if this is on screen and ready to go. But some of these teams, I honestly think it changes so rapidly who has a tough schedule and who doesn't. Because we've got OpTic this stage play. I think OpTic have a kind of low-key tough run. I honestly think you guys in FaZe might have the hardest. At least of what I've seen just briefly browsing it. So you guys play Seattle, then London, then Toronto, then Florida, then OpTic. Okay, maybe it's not so hard. I think there's none that immediately stand out as super impossible.
I think
these match start times are GMT Abra. So this is when they start in the UK. And sorry, this is slightly off the screen because you'll see Atlanta, Seattle looks like it starts on Sunday, but it actually starts Saturday night, but just so late that it's morning over in the UK. But yeah, what's kind of first impression of these games? Because Austin, I'll throw it to you first while Lion kind of looks through them. I don't think you guys have the easiest run. I also think OpTic's run is pretty tough. I mean, they play Thieves and FaZe, and some other. It's okay. Seattle play Boston, FaZe, OpTic, LAG, and oh god, yeah, okay. Now that is tough. Now we're talking. That's pretty tough, especially where Seattle are right now. They do not have an easy bounce back.
I feel like us and Seattle have the hardest too, because we have Seattle, who was still going into that tournament. Everyone was saying is still a top 5 team. We have London, who's probably number 3 right now. We have Toronto, who's probably number 4 right now. Or 4 or 5. I think they'll probably be 5 because I think LAP
you just
4.
smoked them. bad.
I mean, we
online.
just smoked every single one of these teams besides Texas. We're
Yeah.
9-0 against teams not Texas, and technically I don't even know how, but we're in first place still. I forgot about
really?
that. Yeah, we're in first place technically still.
Oh, mad. Yeah, I guess that's true. That's
But
funny.
I mean Texas and that final one's gonna be tough. Toronto's always gonna be tough. London's gonna be tough. But I mean, us and Seattle have a doozy. I think that's a tough one. Seattle's they got us, Texas, LAG, and then LA Thieves for a run. Talk about a brutal four game stint.
Yeah, have fun with that. I mean, yeah, wow. Okay, let's talk this week then. So, just kind of brief thoughts on the games. So, London played 2 games against New York and LA Thieves. I mean, New York played 2 matches against London and Florida. I don't know what they're going to be up to, but they need to bounce back. I mean, it closes out with Thieves Texas, which is fun. You've also got London Thieves on the Saturday, which is another really exciting game. I mean, so many of these games that are really interesting right now and got very exciting. Even day one, like there's a lot of good storylines there, right? Like, can Seattle bounce back? Will Boston maintain the levels? Like, are New York going to be any good? Are LAG still terrible? Like, all of this type of stuff. So I think it's a nice little taster week. There's a few spicy matches in there, but mostly it's just a warm up.
Yeah, that's what happens when I feel like when the mid tier is actually so close to each other. Because I still think like us, OpTic, obviously, London, LA Thieves, Toronto. I feel like that I might be missing someone. Jeez, guys, I don't want to get roasted for it, but I feel like those 5 teams are like ahead of everybody right now, and then like the other 7 are actually very close and can be competitive with each other. So that like creates all these great storylines because there's no like 1 or 2 teams that just can't beat anybody. And I think that's very, very, very healthy for the league to have a very competitive midfield, which is something I feel like we have this year.
Yeah, but I think New York and Paris are still quite clearly below that mid pack.
But they still have good
Paris-
storylines out of those 2,
Paris
though.
top 11, baby. Let's go.
Storylines,
So
but
like,
not very competitive.
yeah, I mean, it's just how it's
Yeah,
always going to be. Yeah.
I think this week the most exciting matchup for me is OpTic versus LA Thieves. The last match of the week is pretty fire, but I think Atlanta versus Seattle. I'm actually really excited to see because I want to see it'll show us exactly where Seattle is like this week. And I think if it continues on the trend that they're going, and if they lose to Boston earlier, I think, bro, like where are they headed? They're going down and down and down, and I don't want to see them get stuck right at the bottom because the potential they showed at the start of this year was very exciting. So I don't know. That's my favorite matchup, Atlanta Seattle.
That's a good
I
one.
like that. I like that. You want to pick a favorite matchup, Austin? Then I'll do one, and then we can close out the show.
I think Minnesota Toronto. Both of those teams have been pretty woeful in hardpoint, and then very good at S&D. So I feel like that's like a very interesting stylistic matchup where I want to see like 2 good S&D teams go at each other and see what comes out of it. Other than that, though, I mean, obviously you got LA Thieves, Texas is going to be amazing. Like that's like the other opposite of it. That's going to be a great battle in hardpoint and control. I actually can't wait to watch that too.
Yeah,
but then
that's going to be my pick of the week. Go online.
Smoke them in S&D. So it's like, is that going to be a close battle? I feel like regardless, it's minimum going to be 1-1 going into game 3.
But it's at least exciting to see what happens in the respawns. I mean, I kind of
control
agree.
though.
But
Gavutu control it could be a tough one though for because LA Thieves is 4-0 in Gavutu. So I mean, if LA Thieves take that first map, Texas is going to take the second map. But then if you go to a Gavutu control, that could be 2-1 to LA Thieves going into that map 4 hardpoint. So it's tough. Like that one could be a tough stylistic matchup as well if you're Texas. But also, I think they're riding a fucking huge high right now.
Yeah, I agree, and I also think like it's also a revenge series to some degree for OpTic because they lost to them at the kickoff and they want to get their own back. But also, whenever OpTic play Kenny, it always seems like Kenny pulls something out the bag, you know. So I don't know. That's the one I'm most excited for. It closes out the week. It's obviously going to be the start for OpTic, and Thieves at that point could already be 0-1 depending on how it goes against London, which could be another Game 5 loss for LA Thieves written all over it, to be honest, and that's actually another pick of the bunch. So yeah, I think honestly some great series, but we've been going for a very long time. Thanks all of those who joined us in the chat today. We had a phenomenal time. All those after the fact as well on YouTube, all the other podcast platforms. Leave us a like, double subscription. The YouTube channel, if you're not yet subscribed and you made it all the way to the end, what are you playing at? We're almost at 10k, just around the corner. Hit that, that big red button. If it's not yet white or whatever, make it go white. I don't know. It's not meant to be red anymore. That's all I'm saying. But yes, boys, absolutely killed that one. Lion, closing thoughts. Great weekend. Are we going to see the OpTic jersey out for the rest of the season?
This has had too much bad luck. I only pull it out when it's celebratory. Okay? If I wear this during any OpTic matches, OpTic are getting smoked 3-0. So this is staying away, and I'll make sure I keep it away for everyone until it matters.
Austin.
Well, thanks everyone for watching and supporting us. Obviously, we got a ton of love on that last podcast. I saw that was the most views we've ever gotten in the history of our podcast. So I saw a lot of love for like everyone. So we appreciate you guys fucking greatly. Thank you so much for always being on our side for that and helping us. Obviously, this is a big passion project for us. We're trying to give as much content as possible, but we also love what we're doing. So thank you guys so much. And yeah.
We'll see you back again soon with another cracking episode of the Breaking Point podcast, baby. Thanks all for watching. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time.